Dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete. Once again joined by Malcolm. And
Hey, mate.
today we thought we'd do a little bit of a summer series. We've got 2 parts for the summer series. Part 1, we're going to put together with Malcolm your favourite episode from all the interviews that we've done.
Yeah, look, it's a hard one because every person offers something and you learn so many things and all that. But I just love also his sense of humour, his engagement with us. And look, let's be honest, it was a long interview.
Yes.
But I thought Tim Geneva was fantastic, and loved Neil Craig and Barmy, etc., and all that. But I just thought, yeah, if you're nailing me against the wall, I'll pick Timmy Geneva. Yep.
Sit back, enjoy Timmy Geneva, Malcolm's pick for our summer series.
Past players, past legends, past legends.
And tonight we're privileged to have Tim Geneva on the line. Tim, 314 games for Port, 302 goals, 7-time Port's premiership player. Port Adelaide captain 94-97, Port best and fairest 94-97, South Australian Footy Hall of Fame in 2015. There is another premiership we will come back to in that as well, which Tim tries to hide about. So we will come back to that, and Dwayne Stewart messages him each year with the most significant achievement of his footy career. And also Port coach as well, Tim, but you weren't ever up for long service leave there, mate. Welcome aboard.
Right, so let's get the insults out the way. All right?
Thanks for joining us, mate. That's all we've got time for. We've done all your stats. That's all we've got time for. Mate, let's start, obviously, back with your junior days, obviously growing up down in Port Adelaide there.
Yeah, look, it was a bit different. I was one of 10 kids with 5 older brothers. So
Seventh child syndrome.
7th child syndrome, correct. But I suppose the competition started in the backyard, like a lot of families would have in the 70s, and it was the best breeding ground, I suppose, you could get as far as footy, cricket, tennis, whatever we could play. We did, and my mum had a bit of a theory where we could invite any mate we wanted to in the backyard, because she said, well, look, if you're all in my backyard, at least I knew where mine were. And,
can't argue with that.
So we always had a backyard full of sport going on, and it could be, like I said, any of those sports that were happening, and it could be all different age groups. And, of course, being that little bit younger, it was you have to earn your spot. So, and there was no there was no compensation for age or size. But, so that's probably where the first competitive competition would have happened in my life, and then it developed into playing for your school and for, well, I would say a local club, but it didn't really work out like that for me. It ended up, we were living in Mansfield Park, and my brother John, who was going to Woodville High at the time, who's 10 years older than me, his mate talked him into playing for Semaphore Park. So that was like donkeys away. But if it wasn't Dad in the combi van when he wasn't doing afternoon shift, we'd all get in the back of that with our mates, and off we go down Bower Road to Semaphore Park's Oval, then on Military Road back in those days. And then if it wasn't that somebody else would be picking us up and bringing all our mates, because we were probably half the teams were loaded up with Ginevers and their friends. So it was quite bizarre, and I love those days because that was part of the Port Adelaide Junior Footy Leagues, and that's where I first started playing competitively.
And what isn't generally known is you're actually a Woodville junior, and you played in a Woodville 1978 mini league premiership side.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, well, so we were zoned to Woodville back then, and the mini league, of course, you have all the teams play, and then they got a representative side, and we played this huge carnival at Woodville Oval, and ended up playing Sturt in the grand final, and Todd Viney was captain of Sturt. And we ended up with our coaches of Ralph Sewer and Lindsay Heaven getting up and winning the grand final. And it was bloody fantastic.
Well, time to get home with those two as coach.
Well, I think they might have celebrated and left us behind. But it was a terrific day. And I remember, I think it was Woodville's first ever premiership of any level or any level, and the Coca-Cola Mini Cup, as they called it. And it was just a fantastic day. And Greg Anderson actually played in the side as well.
Yeah, I am looking at that side as we speak. Yep. And, of course, coached by Ralph. Well, we're not sure. Is Ralph off the stage from the 80s, the 80s show we had a couple of years ago yet? Tim, is he still speaking?
He was still telling stories, wasn't he? I love that, though. When you get a bloke like Ralph and he's in the mood to tell stories, you just let him go.
Oh, he was... I reckon he would have just kept going all night if you hadn't stopped him. He was gold. So
he was fantastic, and I love getting guys like that to reminisce about those times, and that was a really good day.
Sportsman's Night's absolutely gold, really.
It was. He was incredible that day. So I'm not sure. He was certainly keener to be keep talking than Paul Truck Bassani was to draw the raffle, that's for sure.
Could not get Truck to do anything that day.
He was going to pull a hamstring running the other way, Truck.
Oh, God, that was funny. Yes. That was good value. Bloody good day.
So Mansfield Park and then Woodville High, Tim?
Yeah, so it was a bit unusual, being Mansfield Park. Not many kids went to Woodville High. They mainly went to what was originally Angle Park Tech, which then changed into the Parks Community Centre when they redeveloped that whole high school. And it was all of my mates bar one went there. And me and my other mate, we rode our bikes to Woodville every day because my elder brothers had gone there as well. So went up to Woodville High, which had an incredible history of sporting greats, and very strong in hockey it was, and also Australian rules footy with many a good name out of that. I think when the Advertiser did its recent
it was a
high school teams, I think we got third or something like that. So because there was some really good names in it. So yes, played footy at Woodville High, and even had your good self, Malcolm, umpire a couple of games. So
yeah, we will get to that.
They were good times. And then, like I said, I played in the Port Adelaide Junior Footy League as well at Semaphore Park at the time, which ended up becoming West Lakes, which then merged with St Michael's, which then became St Michael's Old Scholars, Hindmarsh, and West Lakes. So Smosh West Lakes now. And I actually remember when we swapped over from Military Road over to this new ground that they built, and that was I think the back end of 1978 for the start of the 79 season, and that's where the ground is today.
Let's not gloss over the fact that also you played in the 78 Sapsars estate side, which I have got the photo in front of me. I admit I am trying to pick a couple out there as well. So
yeah, I haven't got it in front of me, Malcolm, but here's some names that I can remember. Up the back left-hand corner, there's a tall guy.
Yes.
His name is Peter Sexton. He actually played in the 36ers championship in 1986.
Yep.
Yeah. So he ended up being a very good basketballer. And I ran into Pete just this year when I went to MC their Legends room, which Brett Maher and Scott Ninnis talk in, and they said, "Oh, Timmy, this is Pete." I said, "Pete Sexton," and he said, "Timmy, you remember?" I said, "Remember, mate? We're under 12 champions together. How could I forget?" So yeah, it was really good to catch up with him and have a good yarn about that trip. But you know, of course, Todd Viney
he's a fair
was the
bit
captain.
taller than anyone else in that side, just quietly.
Yeah,
He's almost as tall as the coach.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And he, for that reason, he played in the ruck as well. But Todd Viney was the captain, and it was guys. It's quite a successful team when you look at it. I think there's Wayne Marnie, Daryl Borlace, Roger
Yes, I
Girdham.
thought it was Daisy. Yep.
Roger Girdham's in there. David Foote played a lot of good footy for
West
Torrens. Who else was in there? Oh, there's a couple. Gary Argus played Sturt.
Yeah, and Kilburn Motorcycle and Tattoo Club. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Kicked 5 in a state game against Victoria.
Correct, he did. Oh, geez, I'm just trying to remember some of the other lads that are in there.
Todd Viney in a mini league game kicked the casual 7 goals for Sturt in a mini league game.
Yep.
And got a standing ovation at Unley. And
he was a freak.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was amazing. He used to backspin. He'd grab the ball and then backspin pirouette out of packs, and the kids just didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know what was going on how to tackle him. He was like the Tassie Devil on the Bugs Bunny show. It was amazing, but the way he pulled through, and he had so much power already. But it was quite an irony in that. And I was talking about this to some Sturt guys, where that was the last time I saw Todd. It was the under-12 championship. Yep. And we went, and ironically, I heard that the Sapsaza team's going to Albury Wodonga this year. And that's where we went to play the championship.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, we had a rest day, and I think it might have been a Saturday. And anyway, Todd's billet and my billet, because you remember the days of billeting where you just got shoved with a random family somewhere. Yep. Off you go, 12-year-old kid. Yeah. See you later.
Nowadays,
I did that in Melbourne one year, so
we all did it.
We did, yeah.
Yep. Pete, it's bizarre, isn't it, that you think about it these days?
Absolutely.
They wouldn't dare let it happen. But so we caught up, and they said, "Oh, we're going to go and see this new movie in town. Do you want to come?" And Todd and I said, "Yeah, no worries." So anyway, we've got the popcorn and that sort of thing, and sat down. And I said, "Do you know this movie?" He said, "No, got no idea." And I'm not lying. The movie was Grease, 1978.
Oh, jeez.
Can you believe it? We saw Grease together for the first time ever. So it's quite a moment in our histories. But yeah, what happened was he was such a good tennis player.
Yes.
Because he was a state tennis player at the same time. He pursued tennis, and off he went. And we never saw him again because, you expect to come across him in juniors or other state teams, and we just didn't see him. And, of course, he came back off the circuit when he was 19, I reckon, and he came back to play for Sturt.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we played him round 2, I reckon, Footy Park, 85, and I'm realising he's playing, and I'm pretty excited. Firstly, I've got to get the job done, got to win first.
Yep.
And we win, and then I'm beelining him to go and shake hands, and I didn't know whether he'd remember me, and he ran straight to me as well and beeline me. And I've got this photo, this black and white photo of me, him, and Greg Whittlesey coming off the ground, and me and him smiling, beaming at each other as we've just sort of shaken hands and reconnected. It's a great photo, one I absolutely love, and I probably should get a copy and send it to him. Yeah.
It's amazing how those childhood memeries and childhood friends carry right through even to today.
Oh, Greg Whittlesey's one of the great blokes in footy as well.
Yep.
He's awesome
one absolute ripper, that fella. He cleaned me up and picked me up and apologised.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about an under-12 Sapsaza that's stood the test of time.
Now, let's get to it, Tim. Your greatest achievement of your football career, the thing which comes first, the thing you hold dearly, celebrate each year. Of course, you played in a Nord under-15 competition premiership side. And don't you revel in being reminded of that? And I would like to congratulate Dwayne Stewart that he does message you.
And let me say, I'm a massive Norwood supporter and I respect Port Adelaide immensely. And when I heard that, I said, Malcolm, you're pulling my leg, right?
Oh, no.
He goes, no, this is dead set true. Yeah. So we had to get you on, mate. We had to ask the question.
Oh, Pete,
and you played with Storm Boy.
Yes, I did, Greg Rowe. But Pete, every person in life has a sin on their soul, and this is mine.
Very good.
And I've tried all types of baptisms, you name it, to remove it, but it keeps coming back to haunt me.
Oh, he was pretty happy when I interviewed and when I found out about it, because he wasn't exactly going to mention it when I interviewed him originally, and then I've gone, Tim, how about your Norwood Premierships? He's gone, oh Jesus, how'd you find that?
You know, I blame for that, Malcolm, for actually reigniting it. Is a bloke called Terry Barch. He played some footy at Norwood and coached a fair bit in amateur league and country leagues. And I was dealing with Terry Barch at because I was at the Little Heroes, and he was told transport, and they were big supporters at a massive golf day. And Terry and I go on like a house on fire, and of course loved our footy. And one day he said to me, "Hey, did you play at Norwood?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Don't bullshit me." He said, I've got a yearbook from 1980 that says the under-15s, congratulations, won the night premiership on blah, 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 blah. And here's the lineup. And he said, and there's a T. Ginniver in it. I said, "I'm sorry, Terry, I don't know what you're talking about." He said, "That's you." I said, "Oh." I said, "Look, it is. It is." And he said, "How did that happen?" Of course, I told him the story, and he's going, "This is unbelievable." Anyway, he let it run riot. I think he actually put it in a bloody, it must have been a Norwood newsletter.
I can't remember how I found. It may have been with Stewie. I reckon it might have been having a chat with Dwayne Stewart, and Dwayne might have brought it up, I reckon.
Well,
I don't think it was Fanta, I admit that.
No.
I think it was Stewie.
Well, see, Fanta went over to the Bulldogs, and he was out of the state for a while, so I was happy about that, because he always mentions it. So I was pretty happy. But it was an amazing set of circumstances, Pete, on how it happened. So my primary school teacher and footy coach at the time in '78, who sort of pushed me through to the under 12 SAP SARSA, he just gave me a phone call a couple of years later and said, "Oh, Timmy, how you going, da, da, da." I said, "Yeah, good, mate." I'm thinking, "Mr. Robertson, what are you calling me for?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm coaching in this under 15 competition." And da, da, da. I said, "Oh, that's good." Yeah. And I'm thinking, "Why is he ringing me?" Maybe he's coaching Woodville, you know. And he goes, and I'm actually coaching Norwood, and I'd love you to come out and play. I said, "I'm not coming out and play Norwood. No way." And he goes, "But yeah, it's under 15 competition." I said, "Well, you understand, I have to play for Woodville anyway." I said, "I'm in the zone." He said, "Woodville don't have a team." And I said, "Oh, ripper," because this is right at the beginning of under 15s being created. Yep. And I said, "Well, that's great news." I said, "I can go and play for Port Adelaide." And I'm thinking, "You ripper, the dream's coming true." And he goes, "Port don't have a team in this year either." I said, "Oh, God." I said, "All right, well, I don't care anyway. I'm not playing." And he started going. He said, "No, I really need you," and blah, blah, and all this. And then he just said one thing that clicked my ears up. And he goes, and we play on a Wednesday night at Thebarton. And I went, "Nighttime?" And he goes, "Yeah, nighttime." Now, you got to remember, this is 1980. Yeah. The only night games that were played back then were the Ardith Cup. And things like that. Like, night footy was a rarity. Yes. And I never forget, I was thinking, wow, because I used to go to Norwood and watch, Norwood play East Fremantle or something like that. And they'd wear that black stuff under their eyes and the white footies and all that. And I said to him, "So it's at night time?" And he said, "Yeah, it's at night time." And I said, "Can I wear that black stuff under my eyes?" And he said, "You can wear whatever you want, just play." And so I went out, and I'll never forget, I had to train Mondays with the under 17s, and that's when I sort of first ran into a bloke called Gary McIntosh. And I sat in the rooms, and I was always early because my teacher took me up there, and I'd sit there, and then I'd watch all the boys come in. And it's a really interesting dynamic compared to Port Adelaide, and where, you had all the blazers coming in from the colleges, and then you'd come all these scruffy kids coming in who come from like the Campbelltown Highs and Gillis Plains and all that. So you had this two distinct groups that was not, sort of bit foreign to me. And then of course blokes like, and I'll never forget the first bloke that went straight up to me was a bloke called James Fantasia, who was just an absolute gentleman and still is, of course. And he just said, "Well, who are you, mate?" And shook my hand and he just took me under his wing. And then there was a couple of other guys. Dwayne Stewart was excellent. David Payne. And when I trained with the 17s, because Gary was he was too good for 15, so he wasn't playing. He was up in the 17s, but those guys were just really nice. And I remember Mr. Fantasia was just, he'd go and watch every training session, you name it, and he was just such a gentleman.
Great man.
Lovely people. So, so we ended up playing, I think it was 5 minor round games we had to play and sort of like and see who was up the top. And then you had to play a semi and a final when we got through to the final. And I remember I was sort of playing half forward, if you like, because I was an underager. And we, I'll never forget, pulling on the Red Sox, the jumper.
Jeez, isn't that bringing the emotion out of you, Timmy G?
The bit that got me the most, the bit that really hurt me, was when I pulled on the navy shorts and this bloody AGC badge was on the shorts.
Beautiful, wasn't it?
And that was just distinctive of Nord. AGC were a sponsor for forevermore, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I just sat there and looked at these shorts and I thought, what are you doing? What are you doing here? And it was amazing. We got through, like I said, to the final.
Pete's actually got a pair out too.
Did you?
Yep, he's just got a pair out.
There you go. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
They'll zip up with the button up.
Yep, beautiful AGC logo we're looking at. I don't really think you'd fit into those these days, Pete.
No, unfortunately not. I might get one leg into them these days.
Well, I don't know what I might have chucked mine out. I think
come
probably
on.
would.
I reckon you've got
I didn't want any evidence.
You've got it framed on your wall, Tim.
But then I ended up, we played the final, and I remember we played, they were called East Torrens, and they were a mixed bag of sort of Torrens and North. And I'm pretty sure Andrew Jarman played. And, because I remember this kid, so he had exquisite skills and the like. And I was on the half forward, and we weren't travelling that well. And the coach said to me, like, "Timmy, I want you to go in the middle." And I say to Dwayne and Fanner, I say, "Mate, we were down and you had to put a port bloke in the middle to bloody give me the victory."
You were a Woodville bloke at that stage.
Well, I was a Woodville bloke at that stage. And anyway, we bloody came back and we won the flag. It was amazing.
And of course, did the Saps, did playing Teal Cup happen before you became a Port player, or where did that fit in going to Port in that reaction?
Yeah, that year was 1980, and I was 14 playing in the Port Adelaide Junior Footy League, and I'd you know how they have association medals?
Yep.
I'd won 3 in a row, including the 1981, and Jeff Potter, the famous Port Adelaide champion from the 60s, Jeff Potter's lad was playing at Summerfall Park, and he saw me playing, and he went and said to me one night, "Do you want to go play at the Oval?" And I said, "Which Oval?" And that's what they used to call Alberton in the old days. They used to call it the Oval. And he said, "Alberton Oval." I said, "Oh, wow, would I?" I said, "But I'm bound to Woodville." And he said, "Look, leave it with me." And then he went, obviously, to Port and said, "You've got to come see this kid." And he's bloody won all the medals and all this crap. And anyway, I was sitting at home one day and this guy knocked on the back door of all things. And I walked out and I said, "Oh, sorry, mate, Dad's at work." And he said, "I'm not here to see Dad, I'm here to see you." It was Malcolm Maiden, who coached Port's juniors for
long time.
years and years. And he said, "Would you like to come out to Alberton?" And I said, "Oh, look, I'd love to." But I said, I'm a Woodville player, I'm bound to Woodville." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about that. We'll fix that. And if you're keen, we got pre-season starting next week." And I said, "Yes, please." So I went out as a 14-year-old to start training with the under-17s.
Let's be honest, with your junior record, it's quite staggering and, look, let's be honest, disappointing that Woodville were prepared to trade. Like, you and Greg Anderson should have been Woodville players. Now, it does change things dramatically. Like, Pavlich instead of McGregor, etc. Tim English instead of Jordan Gallucci, etc., etc. Those sort of things change footy. And you and Greg Anderson and with Woodville would have been a distinct difference. And it's considering if you'd been a junior who hadn't done much, you could I understand it a little bit. But if I got a kid who's winning every medal in my area, I ain't trading him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nah, it was quite staggering when you think about it. Exactly like you said with Greg as well. Like Greg was also an athletic champion.
Yes.
Like he was winning 200s and 400s at national championships and things like that. And you're going, so he's got athletic ability as well as this amazing footy ability. Like, yeah, it was a bit. It was a bit. What would you say? I think at the time, and I remember talking to my older brother Nick, who was playing under 17s or 19s at the time, and I said to him, "Well, Nick, Port want me to go out and all that. Should I, just sort of say no and go to Woodville?" He said, "Don't be so stupid."
Yeah.
He said, "They'll ruin you." And he said, "You go out." And it was, I think at the time they were just, how you need good administration. And I think that their finger wasn't on the pulse, exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Because when I finished that tournament with Norwood and we won in 80, there was a bloke called Jock. He was our team manager. He had a beard.
Yeah, Jock O'Reilly. Yep.
Jock O'Reilly. Lovely bloke. Ripping bloke.
The late Jock O'Reilly. Yep.
Yeah, he was on to me like no tomorrow. Well, he got me and took me and my dad to meet Wally Miller.
Yeah.
So they were on it. And I said the same thing. I said, "Sorry, I'm bound to Woodville and all this sort of thing." And they said, "Well, look, we'd love you to come out and don't worry about that side of it. We'll be able to fix that and all this sort of thing." And all I could think of was get me out of this room. And Wally you could tell like how good he was as a negotiator that day. Looking back in hindsight, as an adult, not as a kid, I thought to myself, "Geez, this bloke has just about stitched us." And my dad, who had no idea about any sport or football or anything, was going, "Well, it sounds pretty good, son."
Wally was the master negotiator of getting the best deal for absolutely Nord Football Club every single time.
Yeah.
Neville Roberts found that out.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I desperately want to get out of there in an awful hurry.
Come on, you haven't finished singing the Nord Club song from going top yet, Tim. Come on.
Can you imagine a parallel universe where McIntosh and Geneva are in the same team week in, week out?
I actually think the two, let's be honest, on that one, the two of you would have loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have.
Oh, yeah.
I love that story where, look, and you probably got more, and full credit to you got more out of Macca when you interviewed him that day at Payneham than I've heard anyone get out of him.
Yeah,
and the story where he banged, whose heads together was it?
Malacallis. Tony Malacallis and me, yeah. And the most embarrassing moment of my career. Oh, my God, was that embarrassing.
And Macca did the Three Stooges impersonation. It was brilliant.
Oh, did he what? It was bloody funny. And Macca would say nothing on the oval. But after that incident, we jogged away and I was just so bloody embarrassed. And he's come past and he said, "Hey, Timmy, that was a good one, wasn't it, eh? Three Stooges." And I said, victim of circumstance.
So is it safe to say that Nord taught you everything you know?
No, not at all. What it did do, you know what, I was very impressed at how well drilled they were. Yeah. And because I was training with the 17s, I was impressed with the way they did their drills and the discipline around where you had to kick the ball and where you had to lead. And there was all these things that I was sort of going, wow, I've never trained like this. And at that stage, I hadn't trained with a senior club. And it was sort of like, wow, this is quite impressive. Then when I went to Port Adelaide, we didn't train like Norwood, and we didn't have those plays in place and the disciplines around where you kick the ball and how you kick the ball and who leads where and all that.
Yeah.
But what I felt at Port Adelaide was this incredible hard edge.
Yeah. Yep.
It was like, this is, that saying where they say, it's football's not about life and death. It's more serious than that.
Yeah.
That's how it felt at Alberton.
Oh, and the amount of times, especially big games, finals, Port won because of your desperation. We look afterwards and look at the sides and go, we're a better side on paper than that. And then you'd remind yourself, Port were more
Port Adelaide.
desperate.
Yep.
They wanted it. You annihilated Nord in the final. Where I reckon Nord only kicked 2 or 3 goals. And it was just purely that. It was just crash, bash, get it forward, nothing scientific. Forward,
That
next
was-
contest, and that's all it was.
The original Chaos Ball.
Oh,
Yeah, it was 88. It was the second semi-final, and
yeah.
I'll never forget because it was a horrible blustery day,
Yes.
so didn't suit. It then becomes a game of exactly those factors that you're talking about. So it suited us, but I think they only kicked 2-5 for the
Yeah.
day, and
Oh.
Rowan Smith came back into the side that day, and I think he kicked 3 in probably the worst conditions going around, and he basically cemented himself for the grand final that day. But it was such a exactly that game. It was all about, okay, it means more to us, and this is how we're going to play.
Now, I do want to go back now. So, Pete, the first ever time I met Tim was I was umpiring Tim. It was a Tuesday afternoon at St. Clair, and it was pissing down with rain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think who you were playing, what side you were playing. But anyway, there was a guy in the opposition called Vince Mayo. How he never played league football has me stuffed, Tim, because he was a gun. Anyway, there was a bit of push behind. And Greg Anderson that day was playing in Sandchews, and he was lairising, and he admits now that he was being a big-headed dickhead, that he'd come back from league footy, had to play for the school because he wasn't allowed to play for St. Michael's, etc. And so Vince Mayer, he pushed him a bit behind the play. There wasn't much in it, but I carried on as an umpire. There was, and I've gone yelled out, hit him again. They play Norwood next week. And Tim burst out laughing and went, good on you, Malcolm. That's exactly what he needs. And that was really, I've got on with it. There's a house on fire with Tim ever since from that, where I reckon a few people you could answer back, who do you think you are as a Nord man? Where you went, actually, he is being a dickhead. He's getting what he deserved.
And Vince Mayer could fight. He was a good little fighter. He went to Findon High and
Findon, that's
right. Well, my now wife went to Findon High as well, and she knew him very well. She said, "Oh yeah, cleaned up more than there though."
But just Greg was just a nice. Come on, young fella, pull your head in. Yeah, we know you can play, but don't be a clown. And now, ironically, Tim is Danny Hanson, good mate of mine's brother-in-law. So I'll be at Hanson family shows with him now.
Helen.
And with Helen, and Greg actually went one day. Malcolm, you're right. I was a dickhead that day. So and we moved on. So it's a bit of fun.
No, bloody good man.
And
He's
mate,
a good fella.
You played some Teal Cup in '82.
Yeah, so I was. I got invited out probably from. I had a reasonable sort of start to the season in '82 in the 17s, and they promoted me to 19s. So from that, I got in the squad of players that you recommend, and you get taken to go to Sunday morning trainings for the Teal Cup. And Alan Stewart was coach, and I thought to myself, this is great. I'll just try and impress this year and get myself into the team next year when I'm 17. And I kept training to impress, of course, and Alan kept keeping me in the squad when they were chopping it. And in the end, he said, he announced early, because the squad would normally get announced, sort of last minute. And the last Sunday morning training before the squad was going to be announced on the Tuesday or something, he just stopped training and just said, look, the way he has trained, he said, I'm taking him this year as one of the 3 underage players I'm taking to Brisbane. And I was like, wow, I didn't even have to wait for the moment to get anointed in the squad. And I thought, wow, I'm going. And it was such a bonus, because if you get 2 years at Teal Cup, the second year you're more relaxed about it or more experienced about it. And this was incredible. So myself, Andrew Jarman and Greg Anderson were the underages, I think. And then we went away to Brisbane.
A few names in that side: Michael O'Brien, Jars, as you said, Stephen Barrett, Peter Simmons for North Adelaide, Adelaide Uni Premiership coach,
David Payne,
Payne, David Kapler. Probably the greatest achievement you've got in that, Tim, is you somehow managed to get on the back row in the photo, which is quite ridiculous. I
don't know. It's probably the only time I've ever been on the back row.
Yes, I was thinking that.
You sure you're not standing on a couple of phone books, mate?
The photographers are full, I think.
So keep looking. Dwayne Russell,
Dwayne was captain.
Dale
Dwayne was
Lowby,
captain. Yeah.
Pete Brinkworth. So, yeah, there's a few in there.
Yeah, good little team, that one.
Of course, too, the guy, Jamie McPhee, Australian under-19 cricket captain.
Correct.
Yes, he could. Australian under-19 captain, and the side was Mark Taylor, Mark Waugh, and Steve Waugh, and Danny Buckingham and Ramshaw, and he was the best player of the lot of them,
Wow.
Jamie McPhee. So,
Yeah.
trivia
A
there.
good bloke too.
Yes.
Good bloke, Jamie.
I was with him. He was over in Adelaide a couple of weeks ago.
And did
I
I
reckon
read?
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
So I think Michael Murphy was in that team as well. Played at the Bays and Brisbane, and Michael Murphy.
Yeah.
Mm.
And did I read right that you made the 82 All-Australian Teal Cup team as well?
Yeah, I did. I remember I was on the bench for the first game, and Dwayne Russell came up to me, and I was just excited to be playing. And he just said, "Listen, you'll get a chance at some stage, make an impact." And I thought, yeah, right, I will. And I got on, I reckon, just before half time, and took a mark, ran around, kicked a goal, and then the second half, I think I ended up kicking 3 or 4 in the first game, and then played the second game and kicked another 3, and then I think in the final against Victoria, I kicked a couple again, and so it was like, no, you're in the All-Australian, which was staggering. So I was sort of like,
Coached by the illustrious Ray Slug Jordan. That would have been interesting,
Yes.
Timmy G.
Yeah, he was a different character, old Slug. Don't worry about that. But there was some names in that. I mean, Paul Salmon was like there.
Yes, there he is.
Damien Burke and Paul Salmon were their ruckman, and they were about 6'7" or 8" then. They were huge.
Yeah, I'm looking at now. I can pick Sam. It's really hard to read the names underneath, but yeah, you can certainly pick Salmon and Burke as you've said that.
Oh, they're huge players. So, yeah, they had quite a dominant team, the old Vics. But, yeah, it was a great experience for me coming away with an All-Australian in the first year. I'd never forget Darren Harris played for us. South Adelaide went to North Melbourne. And I'll never forget, we played that game. He played fullback and he ended up playing a pretty good game. And as we were coming off the ground, a bloke walked out to him, shook his hand and gave him a Carlton Guernsey. And because there was no draft back then. And so they were just used to entice you with Form 4s and the like. And we all went, wow, what's going on there? And our match day team manager was a guy called Ron Kinsman, who Ronnie came from Woodville and ended up doing lots of years at the Crows. And Ronnie ran out, seeing the incident, grabbed the jumper and threw it in the bloke's face and said, "You get your filthy Victorian hands off of him."
Good to hear.
It was classic. Gee, I think poor old Darren Harris was like, "Oh no, I wouldn't have minded that."
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, looking at the side for the next year, Timmy G.
In the Teal Cup.
Yeah, with the Teal Cup side. And there is a guy there, I will say, that he's in the best 10 juniors I've ever seen. A Nord kid, Anthony Coles. He, as a junior, was extraordinary. He didn't go on with it. He kicked 10 against Port. Actually, it might have been 12 in an under-19s grand final. And you would have thought this guy was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. But of that front, just having a look now at the side, the front row, Andrew Bennett, Andrew Pays, Greg Anderson, Tim Geneva, Wayne Marnie, Robin Kidney. So there's a fair front row there.
Yeah, you're right too. Colsey, I sort of caught up with not long ago, and it was great to see him. I hadn't seen him for donkeys, but good bloke. He ended up playing back, I reckon, in that tournament. And he had to stand this kid that came up from Victoria for the final, who'd played league footy on the Saturday for St Kilda, and come up for the final on the Monday. Now his name was Tony Lockett, I think it was.
Oh,
Tony Lockett.
Yeah, heard that name. Yep, sorry.
Just
trying to be a smart ass trying to work out who it was,
Just a lazy Tony Lockett.
He was amazing. Yeah, it was, and Colsey had to stand him. Good luck, Ant. Good luck.
What was it like playing against Tony Lockett there in the Teal Cup?
Oh, you could tell he was a fierce, angry kid straight away. Like he was built, 17 years of age. He had the thin waist and the big pick-handled shoulders, and he was just such a beast of a man and great hands, and just you thought, gee, no wonder why he's playing league footy already. He was just already built for it. So quite a character. But the runner came out to him and said, "Hey, Tony, Slug wants you to do this, that, and the other." And he just kept staring ahead. And he said, "Slug wants you to do this, that, and the other." He just kept staring ahead. He said, "Tony, are you listening?" And he turned to the runner and he said, "You tell Slug to get fucked."
I tell you what, I reckon there were plenty of adults who wouldn't have done that to Slug, let alone a junior.
Oh, he was
Victorian cricketer as well. He was a lunatic.
Oh,
The cricket stories around about him, yeah.
yeah, correct.
Legendary.
Now, am I right in saying that you had a bit of an interaction with Tony Lockett in that Teal Cup?
Oh, there was a fair old blue in might have been the first quarter actually. So yeah, everybody was in it and all the rest of it, but I think I got thrown out of it pretty quickly. I wasn't that silly, mate. I wasn't that silly.
Fair enough.
Now, league debut, then after that, was it one of the night games originally?
Yeah, it was the old Escort Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were playing, I think it was a Wednesday night, again, Thebarton Oval.
Yeah.
And it was a horrible evening, and it was going to rain, all night. And we were playing school footy, and of course I said, well, look, I'm not playing because, I've got to play league footy, but I'm on the bench. And, back in those days, you sat on the bench. You might get on, you might not. And so anyway, I was standing watching the game. We're playing Finnan High again, ironically, but at Finnan this time. And we were down at 3/4 time, and the coach looked at me and said, "How about we drag your mate and you put his gear on and go on?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So I played the last quarter for Woody High. Luckily got out of it unscathed. We won the game, packed up my gear, went home, got picked up and went to play league footy and thought, "Oh, you beauty, I'll just be sitting on the bench all night." And
was
so
Trevor Robertson coach? Was Weasel was Trevor coach?
Trevor wasn't, not that night. No, he wasn't, but he did coach us, Trev. Yeah, good man.
Former state cricketer.
Correct, good keeper. And so we sit there in the box at Tebby and thought, got the rug on, new beauty, and no word of a lie. 5 minutes in, injury. Timmy, you're on. So I played just about the whole game, and I really enjoyed it because I was out there with league players and the like, and I ran past Daryl Schimmelbusch, had a really good game, but I ran past him when he got a free kick, and I said, "Shimmer, shimmer, shimmer," and he went to handball it to me. And then he said, "Oh, little bastard." And he started chasing me. And then after the game finished, he came up, shook my hand, and he said, "Hey, that was clever. That was really clever." And like for a 17-year-old to do that to a senior player, like it's a bit cheeky, isn't it?
You've always been the smiling assassin, Timmy, that's for sure.
So then you establish yourself in the league side in 84 and go through and play in the grand final. Look, I know you're going to say you're Nord, man. You keep giving me shit because Nord won and all that. But in my book, the 73 and 84 grand finals are the two great grand finals in SANFL history.
Yeah, I think from a spectator's point of view or an outsider's point of view, it's one of the great SANFL grand finals of all time. But for me personally, it was probably premature. That was only my 6th game of league footy.
Yep.
And I came in really late into the team. I think so we won the second semi, and I played a game earlier in the year, so there's one. So I played the last 3 minor round games and managed to kick, I reckon, 4 and 3 in the last 2 games. So I sort of had my spot, if you like, as a sort of what would you say, forward pocket who gets about 5 minutes on the ball.
Yep.
And so the second semi, we played the Bays, and I play exactly that role, but I kick 2, and we play really well and we win. And we've had a great year. I then sat there nervously for a fortnight going, am I going to get a game? And I was sort of thinking, geez, I might be lucky to stay on the side. And then it was a bit of a surprise. We're staying with you. We got a couple of injuries, which I think threw things up, and they probably didn't want to make too many changes. And I played, but they changed just about everything because you used to get a bit of a run on the ball, but Paul Belton was sort of number 1 rover, and you might get 5 minutes in the quarter. Because of and you well and truly know this, Harvey comes into the team to tag Ash.
Yep.
So that takes out one midfielder. And that was Paul Belton. So Paul Belton was forced to a half-forward flank, like permanent. That forced me deeper as a forward pocket, if you like. And then Bomber, who would have been, say, the sentimental of the time or the ruck rover, he was sort of the loose midfielder, if you like. And then
Bradley as well.
And then Bradley was playing almost the exact same role.
Yep.
And it just changed the whole dynamic of everything. And then Barney brilliantly puts Aish to full forward, and Max James ends up on the ball, who hasn't played a league go for about 3 years.
Yeah.
So it was it was funny. I always felt like we rearranged our chess pieces to match Norwood's, yet we've been the dominant team all year.
Yeah, that's fair point.
Yeah.
Mate. And you've been unlucky too. Lester Ross had a fair old game in the grand final. Lester Ross could seriously play as well.
Oh, he's a great player. But, look, I think basically the first quarter was all, a fast-paced blur for me. I think in hindsight, if and as players do today, you rotate off the bench. I think if you had that 15 or 20 minutes to get all that out of your system, go and have a 5-minute breather and then come back on in the second term, I think you probably would have settled down and had a good game.
Yeah.
But what happens in those days, because you're stuck in the forward pocket, well, the first one to come off is one of the forwards, isn't it? And I was the one that came off. I came off and I sat there until the 29-minute mark of the last quarter.
Yeah. I did remember you were on the pine a fair bit.
Yeah, and I remember coming, because I was almost in a blur. I was almost became almost like a dream sequence where you just weren't sure that you were there and it was happening, and it was such an intense game that, sort of what's going on, and when will I go back on, won't I? The shame of being on the bench, because it was shameful back then. If you were on the pine, it was completely shameful. And as an 18-year-old in your sixth game, not understanding any of that, you pretty much blame myself for the loss. And it was just like, I remember the 29-minute mark, the phone rang, and they said fresh legs. And I thought, fresh legs at the 29-minute mark of the last quarter.
And it actually only went 29:40, so geez, you had a fair bit of time to make an impact. Yeah,
I got on, ran over the other side, and actually hit Timmy Evans on the chest, and he has a shot and misses. I think.
That's right.
Yeah. So I know you blokes would know it better than me, but
now speaking of Timmy Evans, him and Barmy going toe to toe in the square at the beginning of the game, was that a shock?
Well, it was. I was then obviously still for the national anthem with Leicester, who's a very respectful man as well. And you could just hear this enormous roar of the crowd going off.
Yep.
And I sort of looked to my right and went, you're kidding me. They're actually having a fight. And of course, then everybody started to run down to it. And you sort of go down and thinking, the national anthem's on. Like, where's the respect?
Yep.
And that game and that moment changed the way we line up for the national anthem
what I was just about
forevermore.
to say. It was the last time.
Now let's go into 85 and 86. And look, I think you show a fair bit of character. You had a dispute. Let's go through that in your words, Tim.
How do you mean, mate?
Well, with Russell and what you decide then doing the course and because I'm actually praising you for that.
Yeah, look,
that you're honest with yourself. And
I was fiercely competitive, but built myself up into a game, into such a frenzy that you lost perspective. And as much as I had to be sort of kamikaze in my mind to get a kick, I was losing all perspective about, keeping your blinkers open and being more aware of what's around you and who's around you. And so I got to the point where I found out at one stage that if we lost a game, nobody would come near me after a game, because I wouldn't talk for nearly a week. I wouldn't talk till the next Thursday night. And it's like, it's too long to actually recover.
Rowan Smith actually said to me they were quite worried about you at one stage, that you did take losing so hard, and they thought...
Too hard. Way too hard.
This kid's got a real problem. We need to get him out of this crap. that, hey,
I think
it's
they would've.
important,
Yeah,
but let's
yeah.
get back with the real world a bit.
I know the
Yeah.
feeling, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
similar. I
I,
can't deny it.
but I think I would have. In these days, you probably would have got help a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But I got to the point where I didn't have a great pre-season in '86, and I was sort of in and out a bit, and I sort of felt like I hit this patch of form that I was going okay, and Russell had sort of been taking me off, and I went back to the twos, and I came back, and I felt like I was having this bit of a patch of form where I was going okay, and then this particular game he took me off, I reckon at the beginning of the third quarter, and I lost it because I felt like I was playing well, and I came to the boundary, and of course the coaches used to sit on the bench well and truly back then, and I grabbed the old mouth guard, and thank the Lord I didn't throw it, but I just fronted him and said, "What was that for?" And he just said, "Look, sit down, stop behaving like a school child." And I said, "Well, I'll do that when you stop coaching like one." And that was just like, honestly,
Wow.
I always talk about attitude and having a great attitude, you can achieve anything. Well, having a bad attitude, you fall into the world of blame and excuses. Well, that's where I was. I was in the world of blame and excuses, and I sat there fuming, and I could tell that Russell wasn't happy with me. But again, you sat there, and then 5 minutes to go in the game, he said, "Warm up, you're going back on." And I said, "No, I'm not going on. It's a waste of time. It's wet, cold. I'll do a hammy. I'm not doing it." So I refused to go on. Then I left the game straight away, and I drove around the streets for 2 hours, not knowing what I was going to do. And it was a complete disaster. And I remember, long story short, mate of mine just said, "Well, go back and put your cap in hand and apologise to Russell and cop your lot and see if he doesn't sack you." And I was fearful that I'd be sacked from the club for that. And I thought probably at the time, it was probably warranted. So Russell, I went to Sunday morning, he grabbed me, took me for a walk, put his arm around me and said, "Mate, totally understand that you're fiercely competitive and you want to win and you want to do well and all the rest of it, but you just can't behave like that. You can't display like that, and you're dragging everyone else down." So about 6 weeks on the twos. So that's where I went.
And you did a course, Mind Powers.
I did. Straight at the end of that season, I went off and did this course with a Canadian guy who came over, and it was all about being able to use your brain to succeed in whatever it is you want to do. And it was really just about being able to talk to yourself positively, get yourself in a positive mindset, and then being able to influence others the same way. And never, ever blame anybody else for anything that happens to you. Just if it's happened, then learn how you control it and what you can't control. And it was such a revelation for me that it took me from being this really intense beast to sort of being more probably aware and unselfish
Balanced,
to help others, and then you in turn benefit from it. So I was very fortunate that happened, and that was a pretty significant turning point for me in my career.
And of course, then you had a reasonable year in '87 under Russell, but then Jack returning, that helped you, and Jack's ability just to sell anything. The master salesman, to convince Wayne Marnie that he's just, and Adrian Settree and guys who were just the role players that, they were bigger than Ben Hur and do the job for Port in the final. He was Jack in that regard, second to none.
Yeah, and I have to agree with it, because I think a lot of probably other coaches perhaps looked at our lineup and went, there's nothing really there to worry about. But what they didn't know was what Jack was instilling in us. And, I'd been told forever that I was too slow and, can't kick over a jam tin and can't jump. And all those things are true. But but the beauty of Jack was he used to say, "Timmy, what's your strength? Your ability to get the ball."
Yeah.
Because he said to me when he first got there, he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I've been doing sprint training for 4 years, and I've been, and he said, "Yeah, we're going to stop that." And I said, "But I'm not quick." And he said, "Timmy, speed's up in your head.
Yeah.
Your alertness. If you're alert, you'll get to the ball before them, and you're never going to be quick." He said, "So what? All you've probably got out of the last 4 years is a really nice action, but you're no quicker."
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was like, no, we're going to just soar with your strengths.
Yeah.
And your ability, I'll get you fit as, he said, and then you get it and give it to the blokes who can run.
Can't argue with that.
It's amazing how coaches can get you to run through brick walls, and Jack was certainly one of those that certainly instilled in a lot of you guys that you could do exactly that.
Well, it did happen it did happen, the game for Anthony Williams. Like,
Yep.
you know, talk about sliding doors, and I mean, I'm not being rude, but it virtually discovered George Fiacci that day as well, that he ended up playing in a back pocket, and where he'd previously been the rover, the fill-in rover, up and down the twos.
Yep.
You know,
Correct.
good honest battler, and he discovered that day, and that started off the Batman and Robin, and you guys, you know, Nord should have been well up at halftime. The amount of play Nord had in that first half, you guys ran all over it, and then to drive in Condo back to the Williams house.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the great shows of unity and emotion, and
It transcends football, doesn't it?
yeah, and just
It did.
just
It
showed
did. And
everything.
I loved seeing Keith Thomas's view on it when he was on that little story that we did. He said that he described when Jim Teal died. He said we didn't handle it well.
No, we didn't.
He said we were over emotional, and he said, you know, we were standing in the lineup crying, and he said we just didn't handle it well. He said somehow, he said, Port Adelaide just knew that it meant more, and they were able to hold their composure when it mattered, you know. And you can't blame anybody for anything. You just don't know how you're going to respond on those days.
Barmy admits that we handled that badly in '86 as well. Spoke about it at length, and out of that, it was interesting. We said some of the younger guys, they knew from looking at the senior guys, because it was Nord. It was before the elimination final against Woodville. Went over in front of the scoreboard and thing, and the younger guys who hadn't been as close to Jim were looking at the older guys going, "We're no chance. We're Port. We're the other way." And it was just, we've got to win this for the Williams family. And Barmy admits that he actually didn't want to make the focus Jim, but in the end he probably should have.
Yep.
You know,
it was a tough day, but one that we sort of it's etched in the memory forever.
And so you go through then, and then you end up being part of the golden era with Port, the three flags through 88 to 90, you being a huge part of it. And that, and how about, let's go back. Yeah, I know you take the piss out of yourself, not quick, blah, 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 but you got the ball. You had to be disappointed, really, though, that you're one of the few people to be dual All-Australian at Teal Cup level, not get looked at by an AFL club, Tim.
Yeah, look, I again philosophically look back on it and go, if you were in today's modern draft system, there's every chance you're picked up.
Oh, there's no way in the world. You're a dual All-Australian. You ain't not getting drafted. Yeah.
So you'd be in some system somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think back then there was this. I was pretty light too when I started. I was sort of around that 64 kilo mark, so I certainly wasn't carrying a lot of weight. But I think
right at more
the thing about it at the time, they look when the Vicks looked at South Australia, WA, they were either looking for key position players that they didn't have, or they'd go for these really quick guys that they had these mudlarks.
Yeah.
You know,
that's true.
They went, these guys are tough, but we need a quicker outside sort of player, or faster sort of people. And we had a lot of really good midfielders who were quite tough. So in that era I came through, we were producing the likes of, you know, McGuinness, Platten, Nailey, God almighty. The small brigade were outstanding players, and they had all the tricks and all the things that I didn't have. So for me, the one ability I had was to find the footy, and it was, you know, sort of probably something that they thought, well, we got a lot of those. We probably don't need them.
Right, a funny moment, Tim. Go through it. The famous 1992 at the brewery.
Yeah. I'll make this my last one. They're calling me for dinner, but you know what's sad, Malcolm? Driving up Port Road, and the bloody chimney's not there. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
God almighty, it's sad. But I always say one of the great traditions of Sandford footy, and we've had it for a long time, is the chimney and the Tuesday. And, we made it our whole routine. Greg Phillips would roll it out and say, this is what we're doing this day, this is what we're doing the next day. And, you top it off with the chimney on Tuesday. We'd go fishing or crabbing on the Wednesday. It was just such a great week, and you'd always look forward to it. And, of course, that year, 92, was Greg's only as captain.
Yep. And
we got up on the stage and did all the things. And then as we're coming down, Greg says, hey, boys, how about we go up, have a photo? And I said, photo for me? Yeah, no worries. And of course, back then you had all the television stations, you had all the papers, and when I do my stand-up gig, I say, I said, back then there was the advertiser in the morning and the newspaper in the afternoon, and I said you'd have the Messenger on the Thursday night, and I said, and they were all there. I said, along with Football Times magazine and Hustler magazine, I said, and they were all there. And people like you blokes that laugh, I go, what are you laughing at? Do you have a copy of that? And then we got up the top to the roof, and I thought we were just going to walk over to the chimney, stand there, the four of us, and it was Greg Phillips, Mark Williams, Paul Northeast, and myself, and we just stood there and had this photo taken. And then they said, go up the ladder a bit. Well, Greg took off. He just went. And Choco stopped us and said, hang on. We've got a typical Choco. Got to get you in shirt order, because some of us had a black shirt and others had a white. So Greg had a white one on. So he said, Norther, you go next. You got a black. I'll go third because I got a white. And Timmy, you're last because you got black. I said, right, done. So we're black, white, black, white. So we get to the ladder, and I did not climb a rung. I just turned around and had a photo. And then they said, can you go up a bit further? Well, Greg took off. Norther followed. And then Mark goes, and then I go. And before I know it, I'm halfway up the ladder, thinking to myself, oh, shit, this is ridiculous. I'm shit scared of heights. And the only reason I did it was because I thought I was going to be front page of the paper. So off we go. This is how obsessed I am with being noticed. So up they go. It comes from a big family and number 7. So up they go, and Greg's firing up, and I said, Greg, how far we going, mate? He said, all the way, Timmy, all the way, mate, just like we did on Saturday. We're the champions. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. And then Paul Northeast is next. He's not saying a word, and I'm thinking, oh, this is bad because he's a psycho. And then Choco, and he will not shut up talking. He's going, oh, my God, Timmy, this is incredible. This is a brand new fear. Don't look down, Timmy, for God's sake. Oh, look at this. I said, shut up, Choco. Let's just get to the top. So we get up there, and Greg, he fires around, and then Norther goes, and he's not too steady on the feet, and then Choco goes and he's bloody chatting away, blah, 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 blah. And then I get up and I am absolutely gone. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where in your guts you've completely lost your balance and my legs are wobbling. And so I've crouched down.
Yeah, you are. You're holding it far more than anyone else, Timmy G.
And I can hear this little ant down the bottom say, stand up, stand up. So as I stood up and for a proper upright photo, I didn't realise, but it's a fair dinkum chimney. And the wind changed direction and the heat off of the chimney. I felt like it burnt my head, and I thought I was like Michael Jackson and the Pepsi ad. My hair was on fire. Well, I dived for the rail, grabbed what I thought was the rail, which was the gate. I went flying out on the gate, and Mark Williams grabbed my arm and pulled me back in said, hang on, mate, we haven't finished the photo. So they went click, 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 and we got down off of the ladder. I couldn't believe it. And I got to the thing, and then there's a security guard there, and he had his arms folded, and he was all smug, and he said, that won't happen again next year. I said, you're fucking telling me it won't. It'll never happen again ever. And it never did.
Sorry, Timmy G. Keep going, mate.
Yeah, that was it.
Mate, we know you've got to head off. Is there any chance we might be able to get you for part 2 next week?
Or in another
time, because we've got a ton of stuff we still want to get through, mate.
Yeah, no worries, buddy. That'd be great. Yeah,
we'll do it 2 parts, and we'll stir you up, because you also, let's not forget, he did meet his wife at Heaven nightclub. So there's plenty more to come.
We won't add that one to the teaser just yet, but we'll talk about it next time or next week.
At Malcolm, it was called Bojangles.
Yes. And the highlight of Bojangles was making sure you were still there for the last song of the night at about 6:30 in the morning.
Love it. All right, boys. I'll catch you then.
No worries, mate. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and we'll touch base and see when we can fit you next week.
Beautiful. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, mate.
Welcome back, and this is part 2 of our interview with Timmy Ginniver, and we ended off last time. We'd done the brewery, and we'd also started about how you met your illustrious meeting with your now wife, Ange, Timmy G. There's a story with Mr. Bojangles on memory, Timmy G.
Oh, that's correct. And
Yes.
it was a very popular nightclub at the Newmarket Hotel,
Yes.
corner of North Terrace and West Terrace, and a beautiful old building it is now. And well, we went up there. I went up there as a young man, and I could not believe. Got up there, and you sort of listening to probably Tainted Love, and maybe a bit of Jack and Diane or something floating around like that. And I remember I'd seen Ange about 2 weeks earlier at the club. She was talking to a couple of the lads that played in the 19s, and we were chatting. Anyway, she came up chatting away, and I find out later on that she was actually there that night looking for one of the other players. So it was just my bad luck that I was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Call persistence, Timmy G, I reckon.
That's a hard tag, mate. A very hard tag. Mate,
So she may say a similar thing.
Yes.
She was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
mate, welcome back for part 2, and obviously we wanted to finish off a bit on your career night, but yeah, certainly cutting the rug there at Bojangles sounds like a bit of fun for you and the boys.
Oh, it was, yeah. That, it's like everybody sort of gathers along to where later on in life it ended up being places like the Venue and Lenny's on a Sunday and things like that.
Yes.
So just after the Bay Disco. And, so they were all really good nights. Pecker's Disco used to run on Thursday.
Yes,
night.
that's right.
Yeah. So
And see-
Sam's, of course, but geez, you had some different bouncers at Sam's, didn't you?
Yeah, the late, great Jimmy Teal, Johnny Wynn, yes,
Bobby
Stazza.
Goodman. Terry Lindblom did a bit too,
Yeah,
didn't he?
and Neil Craig
He
was
was the
actually the
firewood,
fireman there.
Yeah.
Hey, but there it is. Let's go back to Bojangles though. And Pete, your aim at Bojangles was to last for the last song
Yep.
was generally about 6:30 in the morning,
Yep.
and it was Bojangles, the last song of the night. You sort of gave each other high fives that you've managed
made
to
it.
last.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many did you make, Timmy? How many of those did you make?
I was too disciplined, mate. We had Sunday morning training. So I couldn't hang around that late. Oh, dear, yes. No, I don't think I made one.
Let's just say I may have left there rather late with Darren Foster, who played a bit at Port and South.
Yeah,
Yes.
remember Darren well.
Yes, let's just say there may have been 2 females there, and she drove him and got him to Port training on the Sunday morning. And let's just say you certainly hadn't had anything called sleep at that stage. So, yeah.
Yeah, we only got to get through a couple of hours and then you can have all the sleep you want.
Yes.
So that were the days when you were young and silly.
Back in the day.
All right, Timmy G, let's go. So then, as we said about, you've ended up, you're now a Port player. As we said, you should have been a Woodville player. Woodville should have had you and Greg Anderson. What a stuff up. We did speak briefly about that yesterday.
Yep.
So your first league thing, and then you'd had, let's say, probably a learning experience through Russell, and you admit yourself that you made a mistake there. And then let's just say John Cale and the influence of John Cale on you, and John Cale's ability to sell that you were invincible to you guys. And for me, I actually appreciate that more now, because Nord, for mine, finally won a premiership last year when they were nowhere near the best side. And I reckon John Cale got 11 out of 10 out of the Port side for all those years effectively.
Yeah, I think you're right, Malcolm, in regards to Jack's influence. He just had an ability to make each and every one of us that needed to, play well. I thought he got not the best out of us, he got better out of us. So,
yeah.
that was the thing. You might have had a limit on yourself, but Jack had no limits, and he loved talking about no limits, whether that be on the team, whether it be on the season, whether it be on you as an individual. He just always used to speak about, why limit yourself? Why put a cap on it? And I used to love that language, and I used to think, oh, he's right. And, and he never feared things. And, I've heard other people say, oh, you've got to be careful of this, or this might happen, or whatever. He never, ever tempted the bad fate, if you like. He always tempted the opportunity, the chance to be the best. And he always made sure that you were heading in that direction. So that's what I think I loved about him, because it gave all of us that much confidence. And I saw him talk to players on a Thursday night when, they felt like they should have been in selection, and they might go and front him, and, we're all sitting in the showers or the bath or whatever. And I saw him handle it, and I thought to myself, you hear a lot of people when coaches say, you just got to be honest, you got to be truthful and all the rest of it. I saw Jack probably at times and I've seen coaches talk to players and tell them the truth.
Yep. And
they walk away with that head down. I see Jack say things like, can't believe how close you are. I can't believe how close what you're doing at the moment, and how you're doing this and that. He's, another one like that, and I reckon you're in. And they'd walk away, and I could tell they're sort of half thinking, is it the truth or isn't it? But they're going, I think I'm a chance. If you think you're a chance, you're going to play well. And we had some depth, and it's not easy, you'd know probably through history, to win the reserves and the league grand final, but you want them up there as close as that can be.
Yep.
And we had in our run of premierships, we had 2 occasions where the reserves won the flag, and we had another 2 where they were runner-up. So you sort of go, that method worked because everybody believed that they were an opportunist, that they got this chance. And it happened on a couple of occasions where guys got injured or hurt, or, Rowan Smith had his jaw broken and things like that, and guys come into the team that weren't in there the week before, and they're playing flags.
And I think of a couple in that example with just where, as you said, he's almost a master psychologist, and the ability to almost sell bluff, but sell it brilliantly. And I think of a couple of examples there with Adrian Setri, Wayne Marnie, and Ivan Eckerman getting injured with that, and going forward with a corky and strapped to buggery and kicking 3 in the forward pocket to beat Glenelg in a grand final. And just his ability there.
Well, he spoke to, I know Ivan really well, and Ivan said, he copped that corky really early. He's in the rooms. Daryl Cale had ripped the groin off the bone, and he was in the rooms. So it's only 20 back then, and then I think it was Kim Kinnear got knocked out. So Kim comes in because he's out, and they said, one of you's got to go back on the ground. And Daryl looked at Eki and said, I can't even get off the table, let alone run. He said, it's got to be you. And Eki said he went up, and he said that Jack said to him, you've played forward before, you're a forward. Get up there, kick goals. And it was like Ivan had, as a young fella, played forward and mid. And he went up there and, kicked 3 goals that turned the game to win by 8 points. It's just that, exactly that. It's like, well, there's no problem here. It's actually a bonus. We've got you because you've played forward. And that's that belief.
Is that something that John introduced over pre-season that, sort of built your season, I suppose, like most clubs do from a pre-season? But is that something that he was installing in those players right from the get-go at day 1 of pre-season?
It's just the way he looks at life, Pete. He just looks at it always that this is possible. We can do this. And the instant that I noticed, when he took over the group was that he spoke to us. He said, oh, look, some of you will like me, some of you won't. That's just human nature. He said, but what we're going to do is, as a group, we're going to be aiming to win the premiership, because that's why we play football. That's why we do pre-season. And that's what this club expects. And he said, don't worry. He said, we'll train really hard during the pre-season. We'll play our games. I'll lighten off in the middle. He said, we'll have a little tough patch in around about early August. He said, and then we time our run for the finals. And we were just looking at it as if, wow, there's the plan just been laid out right in front of us. It was the first time I ever heard him speak. And I thought, wow, this is it. We're going to the top. And that was like an October day. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And you just instantly thought, this is it.
And were there, sort of bonding sessions or trips away with groups of players that allowed you guys to bond so well? Because it just seemed that we know Port Adelaide, where the depth back then was fantastic, and you guys all just seemed to be on the same page. It sounds like John was the man who drove that, and then you guys obviously took it over.
The beauty of it, Pete, was that the majority of our whole group were either a country zone player or a metro zone player, and they'd all come through together. So we'd all played 17s, 19s, you name it. And that was probably Russell's, what would you say? He had to play all of us for our first 50 to 80 games.
Yeah.
And it was, that period the club nearly went broke at the end of 1983.
There's still a lot of people who don't realise how bloody close Port and Sturt were, especially to going under.
Going under, and Bob McLean stood in front of everyone and said, it's a 50% pay cut or we fold. Mm-hmm. And it had been released that basically the club was balancing its books by, transferring a player, Mark Williams, a Bruce Abernathy, a Greg Phillips to the VFL and getting that big transfer check that used to come.
Yep.
And that was basically, we were running at a loss until we got those. And of course, by the time 1983 come, we'd run out and there was no big transfer fee coming in. So we were, really well and truly in the red. So it was a tough time and Russell had to take over at that time. And so he was basically told, you got to play the kids. And so all of us, and again, it was opportunity for us. And so we're excited about that. But, you got to go through and learn. And so all of the guys that you would have seen play, like a Darren Smith centre half forward, Roger Delaney full back, Hodges Tyler, Fiacci, Marnie, Rowan Smith, Darryl Borlace, all these guys, all of us came through the juniors together. Yeah. So we basically had done all the hard, tough yards together. And then we get this guy that knows how to make you believe. And it was like we all bought into the dream and the belief. And that first year in 88, you may remember the club released a single written by Andy Upton, a local guy.
I do remember that, yeah.
And it was called Magpies Expect to Win. And it was all about, black and white colours feared throughout this state, Port Adelaide's fine achievements of nothing short of great. And it was, and in this year of Aussie Pride, which was the bicentenary year of 1988, our nation comes of age. Well, the team that stands for number one will rewrite history's page. And I remember it off by heart, but, the Magpies Expect to Win. And they released that. And we had three players talk on it. There was Bruce Abernathy, Martin Leslie, and our captain, Russell Johnson. And in it, Jono says, we'll win the flag. You better believe it. Now, we hadn't won a flag since 81.
Yeah.
So here you are standing up in front of the whole competition, releasing a single that's saying you're going to win the flag, and you've released it in May. So think about that for if somebody did that today, oh my Lord, they'd be hunted down. But it was this real thing about, like I said, we all bought into the dream, and this made it even more solidified that we're releasing a single about it. And I found it was funny because we had to paint a couple of rooms here, and I had to dig out all this crap and move it all and all this stuff. And as I was putting it back, I had this old cassette holder. We all used to listen to tapes back in the day. Yep. And I had all my mixtapes in there. And there was a piece of paper, and I thought, what's that? So I pulled this piece of paper out, and it was the actual letter that was given to each and every player to tell us about the release of this song. The Magpies Expect to Win. Yeah. It was incredible. And that's why I know it was made, because it's dated. And every player got one. It was amazing. And they had a film clip with it. I think it went to number 17 on the charts. It was just insane.
Might have to look that one up, I reckon.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
I did laugh that you mentioned Russell Johnson there, Pete. Russell Johnson was going to be centrefold in a magazine, but they're going to have to continue to it in the next edition. So, yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yes.
But it was just the belief that came flooding over the club. And, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head how we went that. I reckon we might have 17-5, I reckon. We might have finished that first year at. And we finished top, played Nord in the second semi. And it was a windy day, and I think Nord only kicked 2 goals.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I'll bring up. Don't worry, we'll bring up yesterday.
Well, you blokes bring up enough of my issues, so
Fair call, mate.
need to get one back. But we went through and got to the grand final, and the Bays made their way through. Because let's face it, they were very experienced finals campaigners at that stage. They'd played that was their 4th grand final in a row, and had a lot of premiership players. And I do remember in 1987, and they'd won 2 in a row, of course, and I'll never forget having an argument with one of their players, and he turned to me and said, "Shut up, Ginnivan, how many premierships you played in?" And of course, at that stage, 0. But in the end, I got
think you might have got him covered, just quietly. Now, Tim, on to a really serious day, or not just day, but an event almost, and just an absolute tragedy is the word we're all obviously looking for. But even go through when you just found out with Anthony Williams on the Friday.
Yeah, look, I know I've done this a couple of times for the club when we did the 150-year documentary recently, and I told the story a few times, and it hits you like a wave because it just takes you back to that moment, and it's just really hard to comprehend the whole thing. But I was working at Balfour's, and I was there on the Friday afternoon and got a phone call from the club saying Anthony Williams has passed away, and I'm like, how, what, all the detail, and just letting you know that we'll be wearing black armbands tomorrow, and Stephen's pulling out of the team. And of course, no problems. And that was it, bang, and moved on. I think it was Bob Clayton making the phone call. So he went through the lineup, and it's one of those unbelievable sliding door moments where George Fiacci was in the reserves. And Stephen at the time probably wasn't playing his best footy. He was actually in the back pocket. And so George comes in for Stephen into the back pocket. And the irony of that is that forced Stephen to go into the middle when he came back. And Stephen played the most unbelievable football. He besides a hamstring that he did late in 88, he was leading the Magarey medal.
Yeah, that's right.
So, so that's how good he was flying. So in the end, the game, of course, we go to the game and we're all unbelievably emotional about what had happened. And, of course, Jack speaks to us all and says, now, this is where the situation's at, all the rest of it. We've got, and you've got to remember, prior to this, we had only won 1 in our last 11 encounters against Nord. Nord had beaten us 10 times in a row, and we finally won 1, I think the last minor round game of 87. And Nord always had the wood on us. So we go into this game with this heavy burden on us, plus having beaten Nord for, about 4 years. So it's like, wow, this is going to be huge. The game pans out. Nord are all over us. We're not playing very well. And I know personally I felt like I was struggling. I think I might have kicked 1 goal, but I just didn't feel like I was finding the ball or having any impact. And I felt really bad about it. So because you don't want to let the family down. So we come into the rooms at half time and nobody's emotional or anything. It's just an air of absolute disappointment. And I'm thinking, not having experienced Jack as a coach, I'm thinking we're going to get an almighty blast here. And went into the rooms and he just sat us all down and said, guys, you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard. Now listen, this is what will be happening in the Williams household. There'll be a radio in every room. They'll be walking around. They'll be checking on your guys' effort and the score. And what they would have heard so far is that you're committing yourself, you're going in hard, you're doing all those things, but you're just not keeping it calm, keeping it cool, seeing the right options, being able to get it and use it. I just want you to calm down within yourself and know that the family is with you. And it was just like pin could drop. And it was like, wow, I felt like this big relief come over me that it's okay. They understand. And so we go out in the second half, and it was as gritty a fight back and a classic game that you'll get. And there's just so many unbelievable micro moments in it that would definitely be reviewed by umpires today.
Yes, well and truly.
Yeah, correct. That Greg Phillips' mark on the line from Tim McNeil kick, and you name it, and it just came down.
He only marked it on the parade, but that's fine.
Yeah. But we ended up, getting up by a smallish margin and coming over the top and getting into the rooms afterward. The elation and relief that we hadn't let the family down, the hugging and everything that went on. And then Jack just said, right, have your showers, get in your cars. We're going down as a convoy to the Williams household. And it was like, wow. And I don't know if you've seen Bruce Abernathy speak about it.
Yeah.
But he said it was just like the most incredible thing that we all just went down as one, as a procession, and went in there. And, I'll never forget the day. It's just so harrowing to see Foss and Vonnie sitting on that couch. And at this stage, I hadn't met Mark Williams. I hadn't actually met Mark. And, to see him crying and hugging Greg Phillips and the like and all that. And then, I get to Steve, and Steve said, I've just not stopped crying. He said, I'm a big sook. And I said, hey, you can't cry now, mate. You can never cry. But you got to understand that's what the stuff we talk about today with himself.
Bloody oath.
You got to let this stuff out. And then I went up to Foss, and he was absolutely shattered. And then it was funny. Vonnie was, people talk about how strong she was. She grabbed my hand. She said, no, Timmy, God only takes the best. And he took my son because he's the best. Yeah. And, it was just, it was an amazing strength that she could show in that time. So, yeah, look, it's a moment in time that I'll never forget, because it had so many changing effects on so many people. And I think, if Anthony was here today and he said, gee, if it sparked this and it sparked that and all the rest of it, then I've lived my life well.
Were Nord obviously aware of the situation, and was there any opportunity to postpone the game maybe for a day, or was there any talk of that?
I don't think back then it just wasn't even remotely considered back then.
It was not even considered. There was not even a moment of that, and the whole football community knew about what had happened, but there was absolutely no mention of that whatsoever. And it was like, and this happened on the Friday, and we played on the Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was within the 24-hour window. It was just incredible. And I suppose that is pretty much the way, like Malcolm says, there wouldn't even been a discussion on it. Yep. That it would have been that there. That
it just came over. It came over the radio, and you just went, "What? Wow!" And but everything just moved on. Not moved on.
Yep.
Life continued on.
And you had to fit everything in.
Yeah, and I just think we've got better now as blokes at saying, hey, we're not okay. But back then it was still very much, hey, stiff upper lip, don't say anything. And that's come out. We had Ross Dillon on last week, Tim, and we're talking about Ross Dillon, where Ross Dillon's father died when he was 16 on Christmas Day. He went to fix a drill and electrocuted himself. He'd had another brother die of myopathy disease and another brother commit suicide. And the majority of the Nord guys were not aware of that whatsoever. Aishi, I told him, and he just went, bullshit. No, man. He just couldn't believe it. He said, I played with Ross, played under his coaching, had no idea. And so that's an area where blokes we've got better. But back then it was just, and it was an emotional day, obviously. And even as a Nord band, and we thought we should have been well up at half-time, and I think Tim probably would agree with that on the first half. And then Port came back, and it was a beeline. Could have gone either way. And as Port came off, I think a few of us went, you know what?
It's bigger than the game, isn't it?
at least they've got this now for the Williams family, you know. And yeah, it was. It's still incomprehensible. Is probably a good way of putting it, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just it was a significant day. We actually, funnily enough, that run that Norwood had against us, we then repeated.
It went the other way. Yeah,
it went the other way. We won 10 in a row against Norwood. So it just was an amazing pivot point, if you like.
It's amazing how events in clubs' history changes them for the better or sometimes for the worse. But it sounds like you guys all banded together and really honoured the Williams family. And the Norwood-Port rivalry, as we all know, is quite strong and has been through the years. But I'm sure there was absolutely the most amount of respect there on that day. That's for sure.
Tim, we've got a brief interruption.
Yeah.
Ollie Pope bowled Pat Cummins for 14, England 3 for 73. Come on, we've got to get Root out. Come on, back to the interview. Yep.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. So then, Tim, you've hit Port's golden era. So 88, 89, 90. Go. You might as well hit me, Tim. I'll just go and get a coffee, Pete. All right. Yeah. No,
that'd be
Tim.
right. Leave me with the Port.
Go, Pete. Go on, Tim.
Mate.
I've got to suffer.
Huge respect for Port Adelaide, so let's go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Your period of dominance, you know.
I think 88, was that year that we had to, break a drought as far as Port Adelaide concerned. When it came to 89, a lot of us hadn't been, involved in one premiership, let alone trying to back it up.
Yep.
And I think there was this really significant moment in 89 where we won the first game and we played Sturt at Alberton and we won reasonably convincingly. And then the following week we played North Adelaide at Prospect, got beat. And I reckon we played the Bays on Anzac Day and got beat. So we're, 1 win and 2 losses and pretty disappointing in the 2 losses. And it felt like, because we won the pre-season comp, the Foundation Cup as well. So I reckon there was this complacency about, you think you're too good. And I remember going to the Sunday morning training session thinking after the Bays loss, I reckon Jack's going to absolutely give it to us and we're going to be, doing the old one ball in the middle and Hoss Williams style running in there.
Shit out of each other. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we've come down to the Oval and Jack sort of not doing his normal stuff and we're thinking, where is he? What's happening? And then the team manager came and said, all of you out in the Oval. So we all went out in the Oval. He said, right, now walk around, do a lap. So we walked around and everyone's sort of looking at each other and what is going on? And we've walked right down to the northern end and then Jack's wandered his way down the middle of the ground and then stopped. And he sat us down in that pocket and said, I don't know, some of you haven't won a premiership before, some of you didn't play in it. I'm just wondering whether anybody wants to win one this year. And everybody was sort of looking at each other. Oh, yeah. He said, well, your behaviours and the way you're going about it doesn't seem like it to me. What I want you all to do, he said, we're not trained today. He said, what I want you all to do is to go away. No, you're not training tomorrow night. You come back here Tuesday and I'll see you on the track with an interview, want to double up and win a premiership again. Because I haven't seen it. And he just walked away. And it was like, whoa, that one hurt. And it was a real sting in your pride to basically say, I'm not punishing you, but I'm telling you, do you really want it? Because I don't see it. And it was almost that, you know what, I'm not angry. I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
It was one of those.
Which hurts more some ways.
The spray by stealth.
Yeah.
You got it. And we all went away. And we weren't playing that great. So this was bizarre, Malcolm, and I know you've got a great memory. We played, our next game was Norwood on a Monday night.
Yes.
At Football Park.
That's right. Yes.
Under lights. And we have opened up like no tomorrow because it was going to rain, and we have
Yes.
opened up fierce and fast and created this huge lead. Now, I reckon we might have been 6 or 7 goal up, I'm guessing, but it was a fair bit, and the rain came. Well, somehow Norwood just kept chipping away and chipping away,
Yeah, went
and
down
in
the
the
wire.
end,
Yeah.
I think we only won by 4 points. or
Yeah, I was
something
going to say 4
Mm.
points,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson will be listening to this at some stage, and it showed him his dad had got a new car, and we'd gone back,
Oh no.
and we'd forgotten. We're all looking for the old car in the car park, and it's pissing down with rain, and it's about half an hour we've realised, oh shit, that's right, it's a different car. Yeah. So that's again showing my memory. And as soon as you said that the Monday night, I'm thinking, yep, 4 points, Ray. Yep,
Yeah.
they are.
That was
Yeah.
the one.
Expanses of the car parking at Footy Park back in the days.
Yeah, God, yeah. So we got up, and it was like a bit of a relief. But what happened after that, we just couldn't read about. We won 17 games in a row.
Mm.
We played this period in the middle where we played. We were top. We played the other top 4 teams, which were North at the time, Norwood, Glenelg, and Centrals. The smallest winning margin that we won by was 72 points. We just had what I would say the best period of football that I ever played in at Alberton. It was just like, this team cannot be beaten. It was unbelievable, and we were just flying. So I've never played anything like it since. But it was the most dominant team that I'd ever played in. And we beat the Bays at Alberton Oval by 128 points, and they were sitting third. It was just unbelievable.
It makes that number 119 look like a cliffhanger, Timmy Jet.
Yes. So it was just an amazing run, and it all came to an end in a game that I know lots of Rooster supporters absolutely love, but it was the Father's Day game of 1989.
Great game.
Yeah, and it was scheduled for Alberton. But what had happened
That's
was,
right, yeah.
yeah, we'd won 17 in a row. North had won 11 in a row since we beat them. And it was like this massive blockbuster. We were clear top 1 and 2, and this was this game was going to decide who's going to win the minor premiership. So they said, we want to shift it to Footy Park. And they did. They shifted it to the Sunday, Father's Day.
Yeah.
And 37,000 rocked up to Footy Park to see it. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable.
And it was one of the all-time great games.
It was a classic. I think we got done by 3 or 4 points, not much. And it had everything. It had fights.
Yeah.
It had terrific goals. It had high marks. It had a lot. It was an absolute cracking game. And then we lost, so there was only one game to go before finals. And then we played Norwood the following week, got beat by 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we went from the old, what they say, the chocolates to boiled lollies.
Yeah.
We've gone into a final series for the first time, sort of not on a high. We've gone in on a low. So we played Centrals in the qualifying final, and we were struggling. And I'll never forget the moment I think it all changed. And that was Simon Tregenza. As you know, he had a magnificent year in 89, really burst on the scene.
Yep.
He's lightning quick. He's bouncing down the members' side at Football Park, and he's being pursued by Stephen Schwerd, who we know was super fit and fast himself, and he's trying to get there, and Wayne Marnie came off his man and ran straight through him and cleaned him up in what today is a magnificent shepherd that probably gets 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
And took him off his back. He kicks it down. Scotty kicks a goal, and the whole game changed. It was like, poured it back. And it was like the care for one another's back. And it was incredible. And it turned the game. We won by massive margin, and then beat North in the second semi by probably only about 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah.
And what was a good game. And then, of course, the grand final, we all know, was a bit of a disaster, I reckon.
It was bizarre, wasn't it? It was so weird. I went along as a neutral.
Mm-hmm.
This should be a great game. And it was just really weird that it wasn't even a contest virtually from the first bounce, really. But I reckon you had it won effectively probably 15 minutes in or something even. You know,
At quarter time, I walked in. I've got to say, before the game, I looked at Andrew Obst and said, we're going to have to play the best we've ever played to beat these blokes.
yeah,
Because I felt like their midfield was
yep,
probably one of the best
superstars, yep,
going around. And by quarter time, we had the breeze, which was, a bit blustery and unusual. As we were walking in, I said to David Brown, I said, I don't think we kicked enough. I think we might have kicked 5-4. I said, I don't think we kicked enough. You know what they're like. They're a goal-kicking machine, So we get in and go, right, we're going to have to be really steely in that second quarter. Well, by halfway through the second quarter, I was like, what is going on?
yeah,
What is happening? It was just bizarre. So by halftime, I think we're like 9-8 to a couple of points.
yeah,
It was just bizarre. So in the end, like, we were going to go into the third quarter with a strong breeze again. We'll set the game up. But it really was bizarre. And I got to say, at the end of it, it didn't feel like a grand final. It just didn't, because it just felt like you hadn't earned it, because it was just like a non-contest. Now, sometimes you can have a day that just everything goes wrong, and we know that. You just mentioned 119 earlier, but it was just bizarre against such a talented outfit, and probably an anti-climax to what should have ended a really good year between the two clubs.
And poor Craig Burton's had to wear that forever since, Who
The one
kicked
goal,
the one
yeah.
goal, the one goal in mind jokes.
Yep.
And, it was just such a bizarre game with what should have been, the Jarmans, Hart, Sim, etc.
Simsy, they were good, very good. But look, it was, and unfortunately, I know it fractured a few relationships at North at the time, because Doug Smart and Andrew Jarman went to Norwood the following year. So, which was unusual. 90 was a strange year for us in that we lost a couple of players, like Delaney went to Fitzroy, Andrew Obst went to Melbourne. So we're sort of resetting up again. And then we were going through okay, but we weren't really turning much on. Then we got Ben Harris and Mark Williams back from Brisbane. And that sort of changed the dynamic a fair bit, because if you know Mark Williams, he can change any dynamic in any room at any moment. And
Not like you to make an understatement, Timmy G.
Oh, but it was amazing. And what I suppose I loved about Choco was he could absolutely take over a room and dominate and the rest of it. But if you said, hey, shut up, he really respected that.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, so you're prepared to stand up, and fight. That's great, So we ended up being really good mates and used to go to Faster Pastor every Friday and have a good chat about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And he was already coaching back then. Don't worry about that. He already had it in his blood. So it was amazing. But it changed the dynamic for us a bit. And then I wouldn't say we were dominating the comp at all. We were sort of in that top three. But then that fateful day happened in August, when the front page of the paper said Port are going in the AFL, and wow, did the proverbial hit the fan. It was unbelievable. Like, none of us knew. None of the players knew. The board had kept it airtight. And, when the whole thing launched, well, it's pandemonium, and nobody knew what was right, wrong, or whatever. Yeah. What I loved about the club was they basically said, you blokes, you got nothing to do with it. You're playing footy. You keep your head down, bum up. You got to get on with that. Let us worry about all this stuff, And so they kept us pretty much, divorced of all conversations or any speculation or So there's lots of pandemonium going everywhere. And I remember the pressure upon the club to sort of keep winning. But at that stage, it was almost like, okay, beauty, we've got this campaign now, it's us against the world. And the first game, Scott, I just kicked some ridiculous amount of goals at Albert in 13 or something ridiculous against Christies. And we just went on a rampage and just kept winning. And we got to the finals, and we went to play the second semi, that's right. And we didn't play well. We'd won all these games in a row. We didn't play well. The Bays got up by about 10 or 11 points and went straight in the grand final. And then there was this whole campaign to go, well, everybody get behind the Bays because we can't have Port Winmore. And we got a couple of nasty injuries in the prelim where Brownie did a hammy. I rolled my ankle and Rowan had his jaw broken. And So we were going to be down a couple, and that's when Adrian Setri comes in.
Yeah.
And I think Wayne Marnie came into the side as well, and Wayne played really well, especially in the first quarter. He had an awesome start, and we played on what I would say an epic grand final, and it was just amazing. Scotty kicks the record and hurts his knee, comes back on, and just a really quite an amazing day. We already knew that we'd lost the battle, and that the AFL decided that it will be a composite side, and so we sort of knew that, but we wanted to take the trophy home anyway. So,
Tim, has it ever really come out? And did Port actually say in the end, well, to you guys, even as a group, this could be breaking, that hey, we actually got stitched up, and that the AFL were always going to have a composite side first?
No, they never did. What I fronted. Greg Bolton wasn't president at the time because Bruce Weber was.
Yep.
But I went and saw Greg, I reckon, during the pre-season. We must have been at a function or something. And I just said to him, how did we lose? How did that happen? And he goes, Timmy, it was like this. When you go to war, you got to have a big war chest. We didn't have a big war chest. So what was going to happen is they were going to just keep slapping injunction upon injunction upon injunction, and we didn't have the money to fight it. He said, so it really, in the end, we had to concede that moment so that we could then devise the new plan to get the second licence. And we just had to concede.
Yeah, my mail was my mail, and look, I've got to be honest, I reckon my mail is very, very good on that. And few things. So anyway,
I've no doubt that they probably played that card, hoping that it would force the hand of the other, without a doubt. But I think, and they had the licenses and all the rest of it. They were playing the game. I just feel like, I know if you go right back, and it's a long argument, but the WA jumping in without SA buggered it up straight away.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, so that was a real mistake.
Oh, and WA footy very, very nearly went under. Don't worry, they were as stuffed as Port and Sturt were, and that Pacific Holdings, and you may have found a Western Australian himself as a former Sydney Swans chairman, lost 1.3 million himself, and things like that. We had his guest at a lunch and I ended up with him. So,
So to just recap there, 88, 89, 90, you guys get leather poisoning and you'd probably take out shares in Sharon. 90...
Ross Faulkner would have been.
Ross Faulkner or Burley, one of the two.
Rossy Faulkner.
You then get wind that through media that Port Adelaide are going to put in a bid for the AFL or the VFL back then. You players were told, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. But surely there was some talk amongst the players as to what the hell's going on here and how do we become a part of it?
Well, for us, it was like if I play well and we play premiership, I might be a chance of being in that team. And there was a lot of talk about, well, who will come over. And I remember Chris McDermott saying, I'm not playing for them.
Yeah.
He did use a few other expletives, but it was like there's no way. So we might have struggled to probably attract, what would you say, the best, probably the SNFL that was going around at the time. But what we might have been able to get was the names like Bradley and Anderson and those sort of guys back. That could have been, and we already. Yeah,
what a sliding doors moment that would have been.
Yeah, so we already had a kid called Wanganeen, and Martin Leslie had moved to the Brisbane and that. So we sort of could have got maybe those guys back, and then maybe a few would have said yes to come over.
You'd have kept Buckley.
So who knows?
Yeah, we better keep going here. We better keep going.
It was yet to come.
We better keep going. Andrew, want her phone back.
That's true.
Okay, let's go.
Stay with Port Power for a second there. Obviously, you were involved with Port Adelaide at the time when the Power were trying to come into the AFL. How did that all sort of plan out? Obviously, 97 was the year and you had a little bit more of a run-up. And considering back in 83, you guys were pretty much all broke. Sounds like
Yeah.
the war chest was built quite considerably by the time you were ready to come in.
Oh yeah, and look, unfortunately for probably those that went through that period of time, nobody was paid well and nothing was spent on the facility. Let me tell you that. So it was, we were running on the shoestring because we had to keep that war chest building, but with the emphasis that, guys, we've got to win the flag, because if we don't win the flag, we're going to look stupid trying to bid for the second license. So it didn't bother me at all. People say, "Oh, that's a bit of a heavy expectation." I said, "Well, we had that expectation anyway. We wanted to do that anyway, so I had no dramas with that." I think what happened initially, though, the Crows come in, and I think we all know that the euphoria that went around the Crows at the time was probably unexpected and quite frankly over the top.
Oh, yeah, it was ridiculous.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
It was unbelievable. And a lot of the guys that were either in that squad or guys that had tried out. Now, the top, I think they picked 75 guys to train or something like that.
And ended up with 52. Yep.
52. Some of our guys went into that training and didn't make it and came out of that squad and came back, and we hadn't seen them for the whole pre-season, and we had the worst pre-season. When I say worst pre-season, facility was like we couldn't even afford to go down to Victor Harbour where we normally used to go. We ended up staying in Mannum somewhere, running up gravel hills. It was just as rough as guts, and we used to get coloured T-shirts to have our teams, and we had old David Armfield's mum's old towels ripped into headbands. So we were that desperate. It was terrible.
Oh, wow.
Sounds pretty useful.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. So
Old school.
I think a lot of people, and Jack spoke to us about it during the season. He just said he felt like a lot of people had just dropped their bundle a bit as far as, aspiring, because it was like, well, there's this other massive beast in town now and we're a bit irrelevant and maybe. And he was saying you can't dwell on what might have been. And the good thing for me was I was never involved in any of that. I never got picked up in the squad, never got asked, you name it. So I didn't have that burden personally, but I could see that probably did affect a few other lads. So I could see Jack again reading the room and getting it right. We had a terrible year in 91 and got smashed in the elimination final and knocked out.
Yep.
So it's the end of that. It was like the embarrassment of that. The club came down pretty hard on all of us. And for the first time in my existence at Port, we had a post-season interviews and reviews.
Okay.
With the coach, the president, the fitness guy. It was like, whoa, this has never happened before. They were that filthy and that angry because it looked bad on our resume. So it was like, okay. So honestly, in 92, I think a couple of players went off, but the only change we really had to our lineup was Rowan Smith came back from 1 year at St Kilda. And we had two kids come into the team, one 19 called Brett Chalmers and now the 20-year-old called Nathan Buckley.
Yeah, they had a bit of an impact. Yeah,
Just a little bit.
A bit of an impact.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go, Tim. Let's go
amazing.
through to 94, 95, 96, and the grand final against Woodville West Torrens in 94. And let's be honest, you won Port the game. Port were nearly gone. Go through that, mate.
Yeah, it was look, in the end, it looks like a pivotal moment, but you have to have about 100 more to win a game. But I felt like the game was it was overcast, it was dark, and we'd gone through three finals. We played a drawn qualifying final against Centrals where we had to play extra time and nobody really knew what was going on. Yeah. So we ended up winning that one, but it took a lot out of us because you had to do the 5 minutes each way after you've done everything else. And then we played the second semi and we were still in that game nearly, sort of to three-quarter time. And then we just ran out of legs and they belted us by about 12 goals. So it looked like a nastier loss than what it really was.
Yep.
We went back to the prelim. We're able to beat Centrals to come back in. But lo and behold, 25 minutes in, we're 6 goal down and haven't scored a goal. It was like looking pretty bad. And I remember standing there, and it was an incident that happened when Daryl Borlace walked up to me and said, "Don't worry about them, Nipper. We're going to come back and win this game." And as I turned around to look at him and think, is he okay? Is he a full quit? I looked around. His man said something to Daisy about, you're an idiot or something like that.
Yep.
Normal banter.
Yep.
Anyway, the young fellow on me said, yeah, Borlace. And I thought, hang on. You're not old enough to have a go at him.
Yep.
You're bloody 19 or 20. You don't get to have a go at him. He's bloody 29 or something. I said, you shut your mouth. And he says, no, or something like that. I said, you shut it, or I'll shut it for you. And he said, no, you won't. So anyway, it was a bit of banter. And then the ball goes, and I'll never forget, it went down the outside, kicked it into the pocket. Steve Williams went to mark it, and it slipped out of his hands and went over the boundary line. I thought, geez, we're having a bad day. So I go to the pocket for the throw-in, and an old fella who was a Nord supporter, let me tell you, Malcolm, that I used to do some sprint training with, he taught me, he said, when that ball's getting thrown in, if somebody's grabbing your jumper or tagging you, he said, just a quick little movement of the elbow into the solar plexus and they'll let go. And that's exactly what happened. The ball got thrown in because he said all the eyes are on the ball, aren't they?
Who was that, the fitness guy? I've got to ask.
He's an old fella called Barney. He was out at the Adelaide Harriers. This is about,
Yep.
This is like about, I'm talking 1984.
Yeah, the guy you mean, yep.
Yeah, lovely old fella. And so the ball got thrown in, and I was getting scruffed, and I thought, no, I'm going to do Barney's trick. And I went, boom. And I heard him go, oh, and I thought, beauty, got rid of him. And I thought nothing else of it because it's something you do 100 times at stoppage. And I've jogged off. And then I just turned around. He's got the second wind and come full pelt at me to hit me. And I thought, well, I've got to get in first here. So I got in first. And I thought, right, beauty, falling over, and I'm about to put the second one in, and about 10 blokes jumped on the top of me and started goking up me. And I thought, I heard the whistle. I thought, oh, God, it's a bad day. I got reported. And he said, free kick, Timmy Jenner. I thought, you beauty. Couldn't believe my luck. Went back. I'll never forget the replay. Paul Northeast pointing to his head going, that's smart, Nipper, that's smart. And I'm thinking, you don't know half the story, mate. And so I went back, kicked the goal, and automatically it changes the mood. And Darren Mead had just gone into ruck. He rips it out, kicks it long. Scotty takes a one-handed mark. And the guy that gave the free kick away to me...
Glenn Freeborn, yep.
No, Glenn didn't give it away.
Sorry,
it
wasn't Glenn. No, that's right. It was Kennedy.
It was,
Kennedy?
No, it wasn't Kennedy. I'll get his name in a minute. Hannum.
Right.
He then jumped on Scotty after he marked it and gave away 25.
Yeah.
And so Scotty kicks a certain goal. So rather than 6 down at quarter time, you're only 4. And we knew from that moment onwards, okay, boys, we're going to eat this elephant bit at a time. And by 3/4 time, we felt the momentum had totally swung.
I agree. Yeah. Watching that, and obviously I was, Bruce Winter's coach, and so there's a connection there, and obviously it's against Port anyway, so I'm going to be barracking for the opposition. And at 3/4 time, I thought, Port have got this.
Yeah, I had it's amazingly, we went back to what Bojangles developed into Joplin's with the extension.
Yes.
I had...
Geez, we're reliving our life here, Timmy G.
Yeah. The night of the 94 grand final, walked in there at about, I don't know, say 2 a.m. and stayed till 6 a.m. with Bruce Winter talking. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I reckon Bruce has told me that somehow. Yeah.
And he said, I got to get out of here before I start thinking that you're a good bloke. Oh God, that was a good laugh. But he's a great bloke. I think we got on really well. I mean, I said, mate, you bloody caused me pain 10 years ago in '84. So if I can give a little bit back, I'm happy.
All's fair in love and war.
So and then say 95, 96. You just Port dominated, and really just pure results wise, there was no other option but to give Port the second licence.
Yeah, well, the end of that '94, we knew there was Schwab and Oakley sitting in the crowd when the last quarter happened. And I saw, when I walked into the change rooms afterwards, I saw, board members flying at one another, hugging, kissing. They knew that was the sealer. And
that makes sense.
They'd made the comment that they said, geez, this is as loud as the MCG. This is incredible. They just couldn't believe the passion of this team coming back from nowhere to win a grand final by 6 after they were down by 6. So the decision came shortly afterwards and that the licence was coming. And so by 95, we knew we were going in to the AFL at some stage. And it was supposed to be 96, but they postponed that because of Fitzroy and the 100th year of the VFL, which was a bit disappointing for some of us older chaps who thought we might sneak in.
That 1 year is pretty important. As
that 1 year, that 1 year was crucial, and that hurt a good deal of us. But that's life, and I know Port did the right thing by going into the younger squad. I think that was a very good decision that paid dividends, obviously, later on. So, but that time, 95 and 96, we were like a really well-oiled machine. We attracted a couple of guys like Robbie West and Malakalis and these guys that thought that, if there's a second chance at AFL, maybe it's through these guys. And they gave us much added speed around the footy that we needed. Me and Stephen and, Daryl Borlase, we could win the ball, but we weren't quick. So it was great to get those guys around us who could just explode away, And so it really gave us a good mix. And we had good, solid, consistent years in both those years. And, we played Centrals in 95 and, it sort of hurt me a bit walking into the rooms because Alan Stewart's always been a very good friend and a mentor for me.
Oh,
and,
yeah, of course. Yes, with your
having to see the disappointment.
Yep.
Yeah, having to see the disappointment on his face. And I said to him, look, they're getting harder. I said, but what you're doing here with your boys is unbelievable. And, you really should build a statue for you down Elizabeth because I said,
bloody oath.
You've changed the whole mentality of the place. So, and then the following year he gave it up and ended up becoming our list manager at Port Adelaide. But, Stevie Wright took over and they had a great year. They beat us 4 times in 96. 4 times.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when we lost the second semi, I was so angry in the rooms. I think I've told you this, Malcolm, but I got interviewed after the game by a journalist, and I can't remember who it was, and they said something like, what did you think of that game? They've beaten you 4 times. And I said, I'm that angry. I said, now we've got to go back and play Nord in the prelim, and whoever wins that wins the flag. I said, so disappointing. and he said, what? And I said, well, no. I said, well, obviously, us and Nord play the prelim. Whoever wins that wins the flag. I said, it's just obvious. And he goes, how can you say that? They've beaten you 4 times. I said, because they got no idea how to win one. I said, Nord and Port have been winning them for years. We know how to win them. They don't have any clue. I said, so whoever gets through is going to win. And I was...
You're bloody right, yeah.
Well, I was right, but they wrote an article, something about arrogant Geneva dismisses Bulldogs.
Well, you were still correct.
But what I was doing, there was the belief system Jack puts into us. It was basically, no, don't get arrogance mixed up with belief. They're two totally different things.
Yeah.
And belief has substance behind it, and arrogance is just a statement. So it was absolutely true that we believed we could win. And as you saw and turned out, it was one of the classic prelim finals of all time.
Tim.
Was that the one with Scotty Hodges kicking it? Yep.
So on that, Tim, I'm actually went reasonably serious health problem. I'm in hospital and I'm pretty crook. And let's say when Hodges has kicked the goal, a radio came off second best at Burnside Hospital. In runs this nurse thinking that I'd collapsed on the floor and went
code blue
and goes, oh, football, is that all? And let's just say my reply back made sure that I was no chance to win the Burnside Hospital Patient of the Year award. Such a great year after Port have bloody come from nowhere to win us and a smash radio everywhere on the floor. Yeah, yes.
Oh, classic. I appreciate that because, yes, we've all had those moments in our footy career.
So Scotty's free kick, how confident were you with him kicking it?
No, no, no. I've honestly said this to him himself. I started setting up the zone for the 10.
Bloody wish it had a missed.
I'm screaming and yelling at everybody else to
Didn't
set
you
up
flush it?
in the zone because I wanted to hold it in and trap it and try and score. And because he'd missed 2 dead in front just prior to that. And
That's
I
right.
thought, well, this is almost impossible. Breeze was going left to right. He's nearly 50 out. I know he can make the distance, but, anyway, he goes back. And the minute he hit it, I just started heading back to the centre square.
Yeah.
I just could not believe how well he hit it. It didn't deviate.
No.
It was an amazing kick. Incredible.
We saw some footage, obviously, this week with Nord playing Port at the parade with Scotty doing that. And the free kick, as a Nord supporter, I reckon it was there, but it was right in front of the umpire and he had no choice but to give it, and Scotty just flushed it, didn't he?
The other thing about that, Pete, is I reckon as time goes on and you see what's paid today,
Yeah.
this looks like an incredibly obvious free kick.
Yeah. Back then it was
that was-
very
yeah.
controversial. Yeah.
In 96, most people said, oh, was it there? You
Yeah.
sure?
Yeah.
So I know when we did a little piece on it at Port Adelaide, we did a little recall piece on it. Richard Kelly was interviewed. He said, nah, it wasn't even in the side, let alone in the back. And, could have been there. And then I think Scotty says, either around the neck or in the back, which one do you want to pay? So the difference of opinion was quite wide.
Now, you BNF in 97, Tim, and turning out, and what a great day that was, the grand final, 97 grand final. But you're deciding to retire after that game and winning the BNF.
Well,
and
I didn't actually retire immediately. I didn't know that was going to be my last game. Had no idea. I just went in, thinking that it was the grand final I wanted to win. So I didn't actually decide. I didn't retire till December. So it came about. I think I told you before. I had a calcification on the back of my right heel that continued to grow and over time, and what it was doing was the Achilles that was attached to the back of the heel was extending out over the top of the calcification. So every year the calcification grew, the Achilles was getting stretched further and further. And what eventually was happening, I used to have a cortisone in at the beginning of the year, and I could get through a season. Then I was having 2 cortisones, and then I was having 3 cortisones because it was getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
By the time the last season came, I was limping really badly I reckon there was about 5 weeks to go to the finals. I said to Stephen Williams, who'd taken over coaching by then, and said, I just don't know if I can go. And he said, do whatever you can, let's just get through the finals. So I went and saw the club doctor. He said, you can't have any more because cortisone like that, you keep having them, the opportunity is it makes your tendon brittle and it'll snap.
Yeah.
And so I took his advice and went to a different doctor. And I had 6 cortisones in it to play the final series of 97. And I got through without it snapping, thankfully.
I remember Brian Colby doing his at Footy Park.
Yeah, when they go.
Yes.
It's huge. So I ended up post that trying to then I was indecisive about what I was going to do, and I thought, well, I'll go to pre-season. I went to pre-season and we just did a weir run to begin. I came stone mudderless last and couldn't even hardly complete it, and that was embarrassing. And I just said, I think I've got a serious problem here, Steve. And he said, well, go and see what you have to do, So I went and saw some specialists, and in the end, he said, we took MRIs and pictures of it, and there was an inch of calcification on it by this stage.
Incredible.
And he said, we've got to operate, take it off, shave the bone back, reattach your Achilles. I said, oh, shit, that sounds a bit nasty. I said, how long would that be? He said, oh, it's about a 6 to 12 month recovery. And I said, mate, I'm 31. I've got to be back out there, before Christmas. And he said, yeah, you won't be doing that. And so I had to make things up. And at the time, John Cale said, listen, I wouldn't mind you coming over and helping with the team as a skills coach / midfield, I suppose, involvement, and I thought, well, that could be a coaching road. Who knows? It could be, what other AFL club's going to ask you to come along and help. And I thought, well, bloody hell, there's an opportunity. And if I have the operation, I can't play anyway, and I can't play without it. So I was sort of almost forced into it, if you like. I decided not to do it. So I didn't have the operation. I retired. I went with Jack for that year in '98 at the Power, which was a really interesting year, considering still won 9.5 games and just missed the finals, which was amazing for its second year. But in the end, a year later, I couldn't even do a lap of the oval, so I had to have the operation a year later. It was true. It took me 12 months recovery as well. So,
and then coaching Port Magpies.
That was a bit later in life. That was 2006. But by then we had that terrible, obviously, the model that was set up to put Port Adelaide,
it's ridiculous.
Keep Port Adelaide in the SANFL had no revenue stream. Yeah. So it really was, a case of talk about no resources. It was just horrendous. At one stage, I couldn't even get footballs for training. It was that desperate. So,
Stephen Williams has never received the praise he should have for Ethelston. That you were two clubs, and what he did there. That's one of the greatest ever coaching achievements and club achievements in footy.
Yeah, and it just got too hard, unfortunately, and the cupboard was bare basically, and I knew personally this isn't right. It's just not right, and it's just not why we aspired to get into the AFL, why we wanted to get ourselves to the highest level, and this is just not right. The whole Port Adelaide thing's a disaster. So I know my time there as coach actually helped me to sort of go, no, this just needs to be one. It just needs to be one Port Adelaide, and it can't be a two separate beasts who almost, compete for the same audience. It's just like insanity. I just didn't like it. So, in the end, I think the model, it still wasn't 100% right. I would love to have seen us keep the juniors alive and the like, but I think one day we'll see Port Adelaide only in the AFL and not in the SANFL.
Yeah, no, that's coming. It will happen.
And it's tragedy in one way, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it is, but when you aspire to be in there, I still say today, and I say this to Rowie all the time, I just wish there had been a lot cooler and calmer heads in 1990 who could have sat down together and said, right, let's do what we should do. Put the two best teams in, Nord and Port.
Yeah, I still disagree vehemently on that.
I know you do, but I know you still like your Crows, but
I still just think. I think the other club supporters deserve more respect than it had to be a composite side.
Yeah,
and I still say the AFL, as I've said, I've always said that they got what they wanted. So anyway, we'll keep going your coaching.
Yeah, they did. So, but in the end, look, I tell you what, I learned a lot of lessons about coaching, and I had a lot more empathy for coaches.
Yeah.
And I've developed this really good line that I always say when people are complaining about their coach. I said, the problem with coaching is everybody who's not doing it can do it better.
Yeah. Bloody oath.
And that is a reality. And it's all too easy to say this would happen, that would happen. Why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And I go, the problem is sometimes if you're the coach and you do A to B and B to C and it still doesn't work, you go, fuck it hell, what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is frustrating.
Do you believe Nord should be one of the teams to come into the AFL if new licences are granted?
Oh, look, I don't think they'll be able to do it now.
No, but I'm just saying, in an ideal world, would you like to have seen Nord in there?
I would like to have seen them. Like I said, I would like to have seen them in at the beginning.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's go on that elimination final. It's actually weird that it wasn't your fault. Not Port's fault in terms of losing that game. Effectively, Neil Craig nearly decided that result.
He did.
Yes.
Dropping bloody Taylor Walker.
Yeah. And Tex just dominant. Tex was just way too good. It didn't matter what Port. When I see him, you could have.
When I see him on Adelaide Oval, and I see him kick 10 the other day and all the rest of it, I keep having flashbacks to that freaking final. Look, it was amazing. It was the difference between the two sides. I think it was an 18-point result or 17 points, but he was Well, what did he kick 7?
Yeah, kick
I
7.
think
He
he kicked 7.
had it on a string, didn't he?
Yeah, so, yeah, he was significantly the difference in that game.
Now, a couple of things to finish off with, and let's just say this is one thing that I do totally agree with you, Tim. Greg Phillips being the best player you played with. I could not agree more.
Yeah, like I said, for the whole reason of just everything about team and I always say he made careers, and people who played with him disagree. They just say we'd see that ball coming in, we'd see Greg underneath it, and we would just take off our opponent and start sprinting because it was either going to come by hand or foot any minute. So he just dominated.
And it's funny,
and
we actually spoke about that yesterday briefly, Tim, where I said the perfect example as a player, and breaking news, Joe Root out-stumped Alex Carey, bowled Nathan Lyon for 46. And that, Tim, in terms of that, was Peter Hoffner, a guy back here. He looked, you would have thought this guy is a gun, got offered huge money goes over to WA and hardly played a league game and ended up playing reserves and was back here. And everyone just realised, well, hang on, Phillips was so good. Mm-hmm. And as a Nord supporter, look, don't dare think I didn't respect Russell and all that, but we still had Rod Seacamp, Michael Taylor, who had great records on Russell. Robert Klomp did for Sturt and all that, but Greg Phillips was the one. It didn't matter what any other side did. His ability to read the play and then give it off with a handball. And I admit, if I'm picking my best ever side, it's out of Greg Phillips or Ross Glendinning at centre half back. So that shows how highly I regard Greg Phillips.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that.
And now one of the greatest characters you played with, and look, it's funny that go back there with you in that regard, where I first met you, was umpiring when I umpired you at Woodville High, was umpiring Rowan for Taparoo, I reckon. I'm trying to remember what's
Taparoo.
Yeah, umpiring, and he played in a beanie at school and that.
That's right. Yeah.
And just umpiring Rowan. I got to meet Rowan a bit, and then just have got to know Rowan a little bit over the years through basically if you go to Port Districts and if Rowan's not there, ring the police because something's happened.
Yep.
And there was one day there and Rowan, he knew I knew my footy, and we ended up talking, and because it was at Port Districts, he's there in cricket as well. He's watching Port Districts on a Saturday as well. Like I think his car just drives itself to Port Districts on a Saturday.
The original Tesla.
And just end up chatting away with. And he's an absolute character. And tell the story about him turning up to the grand final with a bag, because that is, for Port supporters out there who don't know this and anyone else, it is one of the great footy stories around. Go for it, Tim.
Yeah, I'll narrow it down. But look, he walked in and he had an overnight bag with him, and I remember Wayne Marnie sort of hit me and said, "Look at this," and I said, "He's got an overnight bag." And we said, "Rum, what are you doing?" He said, told Mum I'm not coming home for a fortnight. And I said, "But hang on, mate, we haven't won yet." And he said, "Nah, told her I'm not coming home for a fortnight." I said, "Well, hang on, Ram." I said, "Do you realise in 2 weeks' time we've booked the trip to America? We're going overseas for the footy trip." And he goes, "Oh, shit." He said, "I'm not coming home for a month."
Oh, that's unbelievable.
He did not give a shit whether we won, lost, or whatever. He said he was not going home.
He's a character, and I tell you what, he's just that quiet person in the corner. But geez, you don't want to start drinking with him, because Rowan's fine, but you're non-compos mentis. He goes all right, just quietly.
Jack was always hot on Sunday morning training. He'd say, "I don't care what you got up to the night before. You can rock up in your clothes that you were wearing, but you be here before 9. Okay, that's the rules. 9 o'clock, I shut the door on you." And he was true to his word. And Rowan knew this, so Rowan would say to me, "Now listen, when you get to training, you see my car, just look in the back seat." And he said, "If I'm in there, knock on the window and get me up." So I go past many a day and just check and see if he was in there or not. And many a time he was. And he'd come in, and Jack wouldn't care. He'd go, "Get him some shorts or something, will you?" And and we get the week begun that day. He reckons we go for a jog, get it out of our system. Boys who would normally not get their injury seen to get onto that early, and everything starts the process again. And I loved it. And some of our Sunday mornings, as much as it was painful waking up sometimes with hangovers, it was like, you know what? I love the Sunday morning feeling, especially when you won. You get to talk about it again. You're with your mates. You have ice, and they'd always put a breakfast on. You know, you pay $5 and get bacon and eggs, and we'd sit there, and you know what could wind up into another session anyway. So it was always a really good bonding day for us, and I think went a long way to us being so close.
Now, too, Tim. Now you've been in the media now for a long time. And let's go back. There was the time there where Port Power kept losing in the finals, and you used to get a caller quite convincing each year as Anna Kournikova, because Port had lost in straight sets again.
Yes.
Hello, it's Anna Kournikova here. And let's just say Tim was ready. If he could have killed me through the phone at one stage, he would have done it.
Yeah, you know what? As much as that might have rolled me, you know what? There was a moment where I could have jumped through the glass at the MCG. And you know me, Malcolm. I don't shove anything in anybody's face. I never have. I'm not that sort of bloke.
Yep.
And I'd say John Cale's probably one of the most humble and gracious blokes, depending on whether he won or lost.
Yep.
Well, John and I were working for Triple M Adelaide, and we were part of the commentary team that went over for the 2003 prelim between Collingwood and Port Adelaide. Collingwood beat us quite convincingly, and we heard this massive smashing on the window, and I turned around to see Eddie McGuire and Dermot Brereton doing the choker hold around their neck to me and Jack.
That's pretty dumb.
Wow.
And I just looked at him, and I looked at Jack, and I said, "Can you believe this?" And I just looked back at him like that. And I think the look on my face made him sort of go, "Oh, yeah, they're not laughing at that." And it was like, I just could not fathom that two grown men of that stature could behave like that at that moment.
I do admit too, what your TV broadcast, my favourite is 2014, where you got very, very frustrated with Kira McGuinness dominating the game, and I reckon you might have made a move if you'd been coach. Let's say that came through pretty strongly, and I did enjoy that, Timmy G.
See, I'll tell you, Pierce Seymour plays very similar, doesn't he?
He did yesterday. Yeah, he had a great game yesterday.
Yeah, he was very good. So, yes, I tell you what, you have those moments, and that's footy's a bit like life, isn't it? You have these incredible, exhilarating moments, and you have these incredibly disappointing moments, but they all teach you things in life, don't they?
Yep.
Mate, we will get you out of here on this one. Like we like to do with most of our guests, we like to ask them who are your toughest opponents that you played on, and maybe top 3 or top 4. I know there's probably too many to name, but there's probably a couple in there that stand out.
Yeah, look, I think just the best rover, I reckon, probably since the war is John Platten. It was just a pleasure to watch him.
Yep.
You know, I only played a few years against him before he left, and I just thought he had everything. He had speed, he had courage, he could jump high, he could kick long, he could take screamers. He had everything I didn't, so he was amazing. So I think that he's definitely the best rover I ever saw play, which was obviously my primary position. From there, just in lateral life, I got to play. They wanted me to play as like that kick behind player rather than the rover who goes forward of the ball. So I played in my latter years, probably my last 4 behind the football, and had to stand Gary a lot. Number 14. So had a lot of respect for Gary, just as an opponent, as a player, fellow captain, you name it, and just loved the way he went about his work. And I always thought, people used to say, "Oh, he's tough and he's hard and all the rest," but I always say Gary's one of the most skilled players I ever played against.
Oh, bloody his hand.
By hand and foot. Yeah. Just amazing. So, yeah, he was exceptional, I think, in that as a direct opponent. The guy I had the most trouble with, and there's 2 back pockets that absolutely used to peeve me off for different reasons. The first one was your Froggy Murdoch. I've never met a bloke so dedicated to sacrificing his own game to stop yours. And I don't know if in my whole time playing against him, if I've maybe kicked one goal. He was just unbelievably
Don't
dedicated.
worry, Froggy. This will be front and centre on Froggy's Facebook page. Don't worry about that.
So yeah, he and it's a credit to him. He really was dedicated. The other back pocket that I, for a totally different reason, I had trouble with was Ross Gibbs.
Yeah.
He would not stand anywhere near.
He just ran up the ground, didn't he?
And I'd be thinking, oh, you beauty, I kick goals. What would happen inevitably? The ball would come in high, and next minute he'd be standing on my head taking a hanger.
Yeah.
And I used to think, what the? Yeah, so he was really frustrating. I know, talking to Rowie, he said, oh, Gibbsy. He said, I never got to go on Gibbsy. He was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was funny how you had some players you just matched up on beautifully and thought, yep, I'm going to have a day out here. And then others you just thought, oh, geez, this not this bloke again. So I had a lot of, and I could keep going for a million years and name a million blokes, but I just loved, the guys that were just hard at it, and just, Roger Gurdon from Central's had a lot of respect for, because, he just always gave you a context, and you knew if that there was a 50-50 ball, Roger's not pulling out, I'll tell you right now. So I love that stuff, and it was good. I was over many, many eras. I admired the way in my early days of the setups that, Keith Thomas and Neville Roberts would work out together.
Michael Aish, yeah. And of course, you're only as good as your last game, though, Tim, in terms of that. So obviously Norden Port yesterday, you bloody beauty, Liam Robinson.
7 points, and how's the irony?
Yeah.
It was a 7-point result at Alberton, so that's amazing. I thought that was incredible. And I saw bloody Dale Fleming after the game, and he said, oh, we got the cup, Timmy. I said, it's a draw, you idiot. And he said, we're keeping it. I said, you're making the rules up as you go along.
we're the holders, so we keep the cup. Yep. Still the most important trophy in world sport.
I love it. Excellent. All right, boys, I better fly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, mate, we'll finish off on this one. Obviously, your media commitments with Triple M there initially, but now you're currently with 5AA and commenting with Rowie.
Managing to put up with Rowie. That is your greatest achievement in life. Bugger Ange, mate.
I was at Nordo. I thought if he's going to get any love, it's going to be here. And if I had $1 for every person that said, how do you put up with our Rowie?
So for our listeners, Timmy G and Rowie are on 5AA weeknights between 4 and 7. Is that correct?
Yep.
And
that is correct.
Yep. And if you want to catch up with that, by all means, listen to Timmy G. And thank you once again, Timmy, for your time.
Now I've got Angie's number. I'm going to give her a call, and we're going off to Bojangles. Thanks, mate.
Good on you, boys.
Thanks Tim.
For that.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, mate.
Bye.